We're going back now live to pick up the action out there, but Sean Yates sitting alongside me here as we saw the whole of the field come through the Allenberg. Sean, you were jumping up and down. This has got to be the worst we've seen for some years now.
Yes, I mean, the Allenberg Forest is notorious for lots of accidents, and this year it's certainly living up to its reputation, as you can see there.
Well, Sean joining me here knows his way around this course. He was with me last year. He was 5th in 1994, 11th in 1995. How many times did you actually ride it, Sean?
I think about 12 times in all.
And finished?
Not so many. Maybe a 5 or 6.
5 down here anyway, but you rode 12 times, finished 5 times. This is a race which even the best have problems on the way through, and even when Hino won this race, he actually crashed or came off 7 times and still rode on to be the victor of the race in the end. So we're watching here men who, I suppose, when you start out this morning, Sean, what's it like in the hearts and minds of the riders when they know what's ahead? Because they've been training on this. We saw them this morning, we talked to them. Just what goes through the riders' heads?
Yeah, I think there's like two categories really. There's the riders who really want to try and do well in this race, and there's also the riders who know they're on a high into nothing really, and they have to take the start because their teams are entered, and they're sort of going to try and get as far as they can without hurting themselves. But obviously the people who really want to do something, they're extremely nervous. They've heard about the bad conditions that's waiting for them, and they're sort of wanting to get on with it.
Well, they're getting on with it now. You can see it going on to the 16th section of pavé. We have across the whole of the course 27 sections of pavé, and they all come in the last 168 kilometres. There are, in fact, just over 50 kilometres of pavé along the course. There's bits of nice smooth road in between, but this is what that does the damage. It wrecks the bikes, it wrecks the mind and body, and those riders now are suffering with the crashes we've had so far. And I'm sure that Peters and Museo must have a few choice words to say about that problem that came out of Allenberg, Sean.
Yeah, that was a bit of a misunderstanding, to say the least. I mean, they are roommates, I think, and they're the best of friends, but obviously it was an accident. Accidents happen. I just hope that Museo hasn't hurt himself. I've heard that Peters is back in one of the leading chase groups. I don't know what Museo's up to, but hopefully he's not too far behind.
Well, we also know that Moncassin has been delayed a bit. Vogels has been delayed. He's had at least 2 crashes to our knowledge, and so there's a lot of riders trying to come back behind. One thing about this course, though, it's fairly flat, isn't it? So is there an opportunity to get back? I mean, when we see them come down like that, what chance have you got to go on? Because I think you said to me, Sean, you fell off in first or second year, in the end just knocked it on the head. Is there a chance for even the best riders to get back, or even the less best riders to get back?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a chance to get back, and especially today where there's groups of, not so many, so that consequently the speed isn't so high, and it's more man against man, and someone like Museo, if he comes down, as long as he doesn't hurt himself too badly, he should be able to fight back.
Well, we have an average speed at the moment of 38 kilometres per hour. That's not particularly quick, and it's been affected really by this nagging crosswind. It's been a cross headwind as such. And what's it like when you get a wind like this?
Yeah, obviously that's slowing down the race. It means that there's not so many guys keen to put their noses in the wind, so consequently the speed drops down. But once it gets going, then it's going to be pretty fast at the end, I think.
Well, I'll be up to the 17th sector of the pavé now. A quick look back at what's happened during the day. We had a couple of riders went on an abortive attempt straight after the start of Compiègne this morning. It was due to start at 10 Central European time, but the powers that be pulled it forward by about 10 minutes because of this nagging cross headwind and the cold conditions. But fortunately there was no rain this morning to start with. It had rained terribly overnight. It had been raining all the week as well. Not as bad as you've had back in England, by the way. We've had some rain here, but not the floods that you've been having and experiencing back in Great Britain. But certainly the weather conditions this morning were pretty sharp, to say the least. And a couple of riders went off the front to begin with early on in the race, and they were absorbed. But when we got to the section 24 on the route, then the action started to happen when we got 21 riders forcing their way through to the start of the action today. And that group began to split, and after the 24th section we had 3 men clearly in the lead. That was Steels, the Belgian champion, together with Dirksens of the Lotto team and the Psycho rider Risch, and they were away, and they began to get away. They had a gap of 2 minutes and 10 seconds at that point on the rest of the field, but between them and the main group There were dribs and drabs of others riders, including people like Francis Morrow, Van Heijswyck, who'd been with that leading group. But at that particular time, we heard that Shamil had crashed, and before long, though, he got back into the group. By the time we went through the 23rd section, the leading men, the three men, had a lead of 3 minutes and 10 seconds on the peloton. And then they began to come back together. That group they'd been with before began to reform, and so we had some 9 men. Steels of the Mappe team, the Belgian champion, Dirksen of Lotto, Van Heijswyck of Rabobank, Rocker of the Polsi team, Risch of the Seiko team, Debian of Cofidis, Francis Morrow of Cofidis, Gouverneau of the Big Mat team, and Marichal of the Lotto squad. Marichal was having some problems with his pedal. What do you think was up there, Sean?
Yeah, maybe he'd put his foot down early on in the race and it got bunged up with some mud. I don't know. He just, on the cobbles, he kept on pulling out. So obviously that was a big handicap for him, and consequently he's lost his front group.
So he's out. And there's Steels I've been talking to you about, has been really there or thereabouts all the way through. And they were chased by a small group of Perk, Himstra from the Rabobank team, Aus of Casino, and Cursipu of Casino, who had a victory in the circuit of the South to bring the score up to some 24 victories for the Cofidis team this year, and sorry, the Casino team this year. And amazingly, Casino had 2 men in that chasing group of 4. So we had 10 men at the section 22 in the lead, and at 14 seconds, that chasing group of 4 men, they were 5 to begin with, but De Benny of the Risco Scotti team got dropped, and then we had the whole field behind splitting, and they went up towards the Arenberg. The gap grew and grew and grew, and by the time they got there, the gap between our leading group of 9 men, then 4 men at 1:30, then the peloton 5:40, and suddenly it leapt to 7 minutes and 15 seconds going into Arenberg, and that seemed a monumental gap, but it's come back a little bit since then, and now we've got this little group on the front and all the riders in the main peloton trying to regroup and get themselves back in. So the 6 men in the lead now at 30 seconds to Debian, and then the main peloton. Well, Debian seems to have had a bit of misfortune there, because at one time he came out the forest looking like he was going rather well, but he couldn't make it. So that's the position at the moment. We understand chasing. We've got a group including Peters, Muncassen and Vogels trying to get back into the peloton, and Capio, Taffy and Hincapi also has come down and trying to chase to get back in there. So it's all spread all over the place at the moment as we're going to a commercial break. Hang on in there. Roubaix under terrible conditions, the strong crosswind, very cold indeed. We've had little flurries of hail, a little amount of rain, although last night it chucked it down by the bucket load to make the pavé sections really slippy, and riders have been falling off like flies. We don't really have a solid peloton of riders behind this little group you see on the front at the moment. These are our leading 6 men, and 2 coming back to them at the moment. Those 2 riders, Rokia and Debian, who've been dropped off, are now coming back up again to the front, making us 8 leaders right now. Not of any serious threat to the overall top men, but chaps have been looked upon as likely victors in this race. Museo has punctured. They got him as 5 stars in L'Equipe yesterday as being a man likely to win this Paris Roubaix. So now these 8 men are now with Debian and Rocker back in there, are on the section 16 of the race. The 24 of the sections, sorry, 27 sections all the way to go through the race. This section 16 is, let's see, 175 kilometres into the race, and they've got 91 kilometres to go. And also, who's had troubles, the other man, hot tip for success, Zanini, who's punctured and fighting to get his way back. With 4 stars, likely to win today. They had Chamil, but he's already crashed, and then he had a puncture, and he's trying to get back as well. Ballerini, he was in trouble too, wasn't he, Sean, in the Arenberg Forest?
Yeah, I saw him in the Arenberg Forest. It's a little way back, but I didn't see him crash. So I think, you know, after that forest, it was all split up, but everyone's fighting to get back into the frame of things, and I think there'll be a general regroupment before the racing gets underway again. Well,
the Arenberg Forest, that came after the riders had covered 153 kilometres of this race today, and the distance to go to finish 113 kilometres. That's around about 66, 70 miles or so. So it gives them a chance to reorganise themselves. But this little group on the front seemed to be holding their own. If you didn't catch our earlier comments, they went away somewhere around about, 30-odd kilometres down the road. And when they came into 24th of the certain section of pavé to go through, they were well ahead of the main field by some 2 minutes and 10 seconds. It's been growing now, as you can see, and the gap, the last one we've got, was just 4 minutes and 40 seconds, whereas the maximum gap they had at one time was 7 minutes and 50. So they are slowing just a little bit at the moment, and presumably, is this... what is the ideal size of a bunch in this, on an occasion like this? Because it isn't like a road race where you seem to take turns to come off the front. It seems to be every man for himself. So you're talking about 4 men, 6 men, 10 men?
Yeah, I think probably 10 men maximum. On the pave, you can only really ride, you can't really rotate on the pave, so in between sections, then you can rotate. 10 is probably the ideal number. But these guys have been at it for quite a long time. They're probably beginning to tire. Got this nagging cross headwind, which is going to slow them down, and I don't think it'll be that long before they're caught.
It depends who's going to catch them too, doesn't it? What state those riders are in.
We can't really see what's going on behind. We're not getting pictures. We just know there's sort of people fighting to get back on and what have you. So it would be interesting to see when we get some pictures of what's happening behind.
Well, we are getting information coming over our race radio, but the conditions are not exactly ideal today. We've got strong winds blowing all our papers all over the place. We're listening to race radio as best we can. We're getting it all logged to make sure we can understand a bit of what's going on at the moment out there on this radio. This camera gives you some idea of the surface of the road, but the battering these bikes are getting. You see how that chain is jumping up and down? That shows you how his back wheel is vibrating, and all that vibration then goes back up through his saddle, bouncing around all over the place. His hands on the handlebars will also be battered too by the conditions, although we have seen a number of riders using the rock shocks, the suspension forks. This morning I went round checking, we saw them last night, and they're out there with these forks, and particularly the latest duty version. And I think, Sean Yates, you used these suspension forks in the past. Are they more beneficial on certain conditions than others?
I think, yeah, the slower you go, the more beneficial they are, and when it's really wet, obviously you go a bit slower, and I think today it doesn't seem as wet, despite all the information we were getting, but there's still definitely help.
Yeah, we met up with Tim Flux from the Rock Shocks operation last night, and he was saying that they've got 35 of them on the new Roubaix version, which they've slightly increased the rigidity of them, and by that I mean that they've stopped them flexing a bit. They found a bit on the light side last time, and quite a number of teams are still riding on the older Rock Shocks, which are very much like a slightly narrower version of the mountain bike forks, whereas the Roubaix is specially designed for road forks like this, and that many of the teams have switched into using them. They're also using quite wider section tyres, and we were looking at one particular team last night, which remained nameless, who couldn't get anything above 23 700 by 23s, and they were using somebody else's tyres to get 25s. And I think somebody this morning said there was something on a 30 something as well. So is that important again, to get a fatter tyre?
Yeah, I think because then you can get away with lower pressure in the tyre, which also makes a big difference on the pave. And in normal circumstances on the road, you'll be using 7, 7.5. I'd like to use 4.5, 5 if I can get away with it. Obviously, the lower you go, the more risk there is a puncture, because you can bottom out on the rim. But with a wider section means you can have less pressure, and it gives you a softer ride. Along with the rock shocks, then that does help a big time. We also had a chance to look last night at the head shocks. That's the Cannondale version, and we've had a close-up on our television cameras before we came on air of one of the riders, and I think that Riche in this group, if we might have a chance of seeing him riding on a Cannondale bike, and you'll see a little yellow concertina over the top of it. And there it is now. As I speak, the producer picks it up for you. The suspension is inside the head, and I rode round on one last night. They're experimenting with. It's not in the race today, where you can actually have a switch that can go hard or soft on the suspension system, switching one way or the other, and another switch where you can actually lock it out totally. It was only experimental, and they couldn't actually get round to using it in this race. Now there we are. Look, I told you that we got these chaps from the casino team, Alson Cursipew, in here, riding very strongly indeed. They're the red and yellow and white colours, and for Cursipew to come from the Circuit of the South, where he had certainly 2 if not 3 stage victories, he's riding extremely well at the moment. And these East European riders are very hard men indeed, and Sean, I think you'd agree with me, this is a hard man's race, isn't it? It certainly is. I think going back to that head shot, it looks like he stopped. There's a puncture here for one of the riders.
in that leading group. It shouldn't be too bad on this particular part of the course, but going back to the head shocks version Cannondale are using, they've got 4 lines of bearings in the head bearing for the way in which they're flatted to provide the steering, and there's a spring in there with a rubber in the centre, and they can vary the amount of suspension you get at, tune it to each individual riders, and I think that must be quite a novel way of doing it. You haven't got the trouble of 2 different forks on either side going up and down and perhaps getting some stiction in them. It's a novel way of doing things, and certainly with the big thick aluminium frames that Cannondale are using, it's an ideal way to have the suspension system up inside the head. But it's not, of course, the first time it's been done. Alex Moulton did it in his bike in 1962. In fact, I've still got 3 of them myself, but the head stem was much longer on those bicycles and the wheels were much smaller, much smaller. They're not searching, by the way, Sean, for the size of the pavé at the moment, are they? I mean, when we've watched, I mean, anybody's watching this race in the last 2 or 3 years, it's been very dry, and they've been sort of going down in the gutters, haven't they?
Yeah, you know, this year they're riding down the middle more. When you ride in the gutter, you've got a bigger chance of getting a puncture, so it is a risk. But when you've got a smaller group, it's easier to see where you're going, and you know, they tend to ride in the middle. As you can see that on the side there, it is a bit damp, and that's where you wouldn't want to go down there before you lose it, I think.
How much of the course can you remember? With G-Shat's been training on it, and you already watched some 12 times, and they do slightly alter it each year, but how much of it can you remember as you're going along? Can you remember the worst part to miss, or just hope that you can remember as much as possible? You know, what is the retention of this particular course?
Yeah, obviously the more times you ride it, the better you can remember it, and I certainly remembered most sections in quite good detail, so it's definitely a big advantage. You know, if you can memorise these sections. There are 3 new sections this year. I expect you know, the top boys have been over them to memorise them as well, but it's pretty much similar each year, and you can accumulate the knowledge and remember it.
Apart from the way that the race is going, like now, it's been really broken up following the crashes and the punctures we've been having, and the problems there in the Allenberg, and the little groups we were looking at now. Would you, in going along the course, is there any sort of preconceived plan that would say, right, if the conditions are like this is the best part of the race to go? Because we seem to see certain action. I mean, and therefore, if you're riding, you, for instance, yourself, is saying, well, I've got to watch this part because that's where they like to go.
Yeah, obviously in the bad conditions, that means it's going to be much more slippery on certain sections. Some sections aren't so bad, and particularly, you know, the Allenberg Forest is imperative that you're near the front. But as we saw before we came on air, even I think it was like the 3rd or 4th man in the Allenberg came down, so you can never be 100% sure, but you're cutting back the risk if you're right at the front at the beginning of these bad sections.
Well, Casarato there trying to get himself up onto this group. They keep putting the word peloton up, but there's not much left of a peloton as we know it. Looking at Sorensen at the moment in this group here, so it really has been split, and some of the chaps, the favourites and otherwise, they're all over the place at the moment, aren't they? Are they going to try and wait to get together, or are they going to take advantage of this one now and keep going in little penny numbers?
I think it's just going to be group chasing group, as far as I can see, and it's going to be, you know, the strongest guys who make it back up to the front.
Well, we're getting calls coming in now about the gaps back between some of these groups. It is very hectic. We'll do our best to put it together, both visually and off the headphones, whilst the rain is now bucketing down our finish point here, and before the bits of paper get absolutely either soaked or blown away, my thanks for the Christmas card from Angela McLean in Paris St Helens, who sent a Christmas card, said she's looking forward to next season, and my tip for Paris Roubaix is Chamil or Taffy, bye for now. And well, we know that Taffy was in trouble in that Allenberg Forest. We know that Chamil also had the misfortune to puncture. The amazing thing in the Allenberg Forest too, I don't think you've ever seen it before, Sean. We had them going the wrong side of the spectator. They went up the grass on the other side. There was like right on both sides of the spectators. Yeah,
because you know, a few years back, when it was dry, you could ride on the side there, but they tried to stop the riders doing that by putting a fence up, which the spectators were standing behind, but then the riders were going behind the fence and the spectators, just trying to stay away from those cobbles.
So you're watching what is the most unbelievably different race in bicycle history. This tremendous race, the Paris Roubaix. Undoubtedly, it almost stands the hairs on the back of your neck. It dates back to 1896 when Joseph Fischer got it, and over the years they battled away across the flatlands north of Paris. We start this morning Compiègne, well out of Paris. In the old days they did go from Paris Roubaix, but you can see the conditions conditions they're riding under now. The old days, these roads, many of them were like that and never got much better, and now they're trying to replicate that. But these chaps on these modern new machines racing along here, going on certain smooth parts from time to time. There's still 50 kilometres of the pavé left here to batter the rider. And this, I think, is the chap that had the trouble with the pedals, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks like him, yeah, number 86, Marshall.
That's him, yeah. And he's losing contact again. We saw this happen before, but every time he sort of tried to put some pressure on, his pedals came out the pedal. But he has been with that early breakaway group, and looks like they might well be beginning to come up to that that first 8 men or so that we've got on your screen now. Bortolami is that coming through. Bortolami, now this is it. This is good, because that's a very strong man in this race, and with Bortolami coming through now, I think that's going to cause some problem. He was second in 1996, Bortolami, and another man who was being tipped as a likely victor this race. He's moving his way up to the front end now.
Yeah, I think just in front of this group is the first of the peloton with them. I think I saw Wilfred Peters there, and Taffy, and a couple of other strong riders.
Well, Rabobank are well represented today, aren't they? We've seen them doing quite well. Here's Van Heijswijk, who's been going hard at the front, but their main man they're looking for is Sorensen, who just saw a little bit further back down in the group. So as they now begin to start to regroup, the conditions will be going further on. You can see it absolutely atrocious. The rain that's fallen during the week has made this course a skating rink in parts of it. Certain parts have been drying out with a very cold wind that's been blowing across, but we've had flurries of hail and flurries of rain, and the crowd has been thinned down somewhat at the stadium in Roubaix, where they're going to finish. And where we're now sitting, we've been out there looking at the course, looking at the riders this morning and yesterday, and trying to, I suppose, a bit like the Grand National, really, trying to pick a winner from this one. The men in good form that we know of have had more than their fair share of problems, so it may be a day when one of the undergroup manages to get away and catch away napping, but they're slowing down a little bit now, so perhaps it may all come back together. Hang on in with us and come back after this. Happy Easter to you all watching back at home. I'm sure you've got your feet up. I don't know what the conditions are like back there in Great Britain, but they're diabolical here on the Paris Roubaix, and we're seeing quite a change in the system. This is the leading group at the moment. There are 24 riders in a chasing group. We're just getting the numbers coming up on our headphones right now, but it includes people like Moncassin, Capio, Taffy, Hincapie, Sorensen, Hoffman, Boskinen, and so on. We will just get confirmation of that later on, but they're chasing down a group of riders, including Steels, Riche, Murrow, Van Heijswijk, Gouvenou, out there in that lead. Some 8 men at the moment. And of those riders in that leading 8 group, Steels has been riding his heart out. The Belgian champion has always been at the front since the race really settled down into a proper form round about the 25th of the, or 25 to go of the special pavé sections along the route. So he's had a long time out there, but the amazing thing is that Museo is having to be fighting since he had his crash with Peters to get back in contention with this one, and it really is being a tough day today. You're relishing every moment, Sean Yates, sitting beside me. You're always licking your lips looking at this one. I know you're sorry you're not exactly there, but on the other hand, you're not sorry you're not there.
No, it's nice to be here and, you know, watching the race firsthand. Obviously, this was one of my favourite races, and I still get excited by it.
So what's the tactics going to be now with the Mappe squad? Are they going to steamroll this one and try and catch that breakaway group up there, those 8 or 9 men we've got? I think the last time check I had, says he's flicking over his wet papers, it was 3 minutes and 15 seconds between our leading group and this group containing Moncassin.
Yeah, it looks like the GAN team are quite keen to push on. They've got a few members in there, as well as the Mapai team, who are maybe not sure what they should do, whether they should, you know, wait till Museo comes back up. They've got Ballerini, Lace and Peters, Taffy there, so they've got quite a decent number.
Right, we've got all the numbers now, so we're going to get the names written down against them in just a moment, and then we'll come out to you, really. But we know that Polly and Vogels are in there, and that means that certainly with Moncassin, at least 3 of the GAN riders have survived the thrash we've had so far, and we're looking at there is Polly starting to wind things up.
They're not really certain what to do. They're starting to jump around, and
Well, why is Eros sort of driving away now? Are they going to put the pressure on Mappe to chase him down? Because yes, they've had to look. Mappe's put a man up there, haven't they now?
I think they're just trying to make a decision as to how to move on from here. It seems to be indecisive at the moment.
Yeah, they sent Polly down the road, Eros Polly, and it made Musso do a bit of work. So there's about 4 of the Mappe riders in here.
And 4 Gan riders.
Yeah. So that's their own little private battle, isn't it?
Service Ganoven.
This is the group coming up on your screen now. And there, Taffy Bortolami. Well, Taffy's been the long shot to win today by many people. You can see him all running up there. Moncassin, well, he's got to get one better this year. He's had his second places so many last year. There, O'Grady was another teammate. Polly, yes, they got 34 men from Gan. O'Grady, Polly, Vogels, and Moncassin. Earth Marischal and Hoffman all together. Ekimov for the US Postal team. And the rest of those riders, Casarato quite a hope, I think, for today. There's 3 of the Scrigno riders there, Conte, Pieri and Casarato. And a shot of their logo there, the Paris Roubaix. And you see those sort of black lumps in front, those are indicative, a little sketch of the pavé which they've been riding over. And you can see now close to one of the forks there that the big bad Ober fellow's got on his bicycle. If they drop the camera down, we'll be able to have another look at them. There they are, they're the Ruby type. Well, this is our little leading group at the moment.
Talking of the forks, I think it's the last 4 years there hasn't been a winner on the rock shocks, and one of the reasons is because it's been a Mappe rider who ride Cornagos, and Mr. Cornago is not very keen to have the rock shocks on the bike because he thinks it defaces them. So,
well, his bikes are beautiful. I was looking at some last night where they got it in an Art Nouveau style. He got some beautiful paintings on them and done with airbrushes, and obviously spent a lot of time finessing with the bike, but he does also make special bikes. We were looking at Rabobank's bikes last night, weren't we? And they got a longer wheelbase and much more clearance under brake arches and under the front forks to allow the mud to clear out. And one of the bikes had even got the centerful sort of brakes used by the mountain bikes. And I say that streaming into the finish here, watching the Taffy do his work here coming up. He must have gone back for somebody because he was in that group originally, wasn't he?
Yeah, maybe at a punch, because I think Wilfred Peace is with him there, and they're just coming back up.
So let's go back to what's happening at Roubaix. We've got the mountain bike Paris Roubaix coming through here. Sorry we can't show on the screen, but all your mountain bike followers are perhaps watching this now. The Fat Tard Fraternity have come in here. They've been riding since their 2-day race. They started out on Saturday. They had several different stages as we watch this Taffy ride his way back. And there they go. Yes, there must have been a puncture. And you see the bike on the left-hand side, the Mavic service cars. They also have motorbikes with them because often the cars can't get up there to deal with the problems of the punctures, and so they rely upon the motorcycles to shepherd the ride. We were looking at those again last night. They got special motorcycles, the cross-country type motorbikes with big knobbly tires on these tremendous big bikes to go across the cobble. There they are, jumping around again. And this is our little leading group, which some reason or they've decided to get stuck in and split the whole thing up, but that seems to me a bit surprising at this stage.
Yeah, I think maybe 1 or 2 guys get a bit tired. They've been out there a long time, and they're starting to sit on, and the stronger guys are getting fed up with that and maybe thinking of trying to go it alone a bit. But I just heard over the race radar that Van der Broek, the Lotto manager, had come up and asked Marischal, the guy who had the problem with his pedals, to drop back and help Museo regain the main chasing group there, so he can't be that far behind.
Well, the last time check we got was 3 minutes and 15 seconds for 24 riders, and as we're looking now at our leading group, let me run back down again through that group of 24 riders. We have in there number 71, 72, 74 and 75. That's the Gan riders, and in fact they've got 78 in there. So they've got Moncassin, Backstead, O'Grady, Polly and Vogel, so they're there in strength at the moment. As we're looking on the front of the group here at Dirksen, in fact he's the one who's drifting up dropping all over the place. I don't know what they're getting on with at the moment, Sean, but there's Risch, who's in this leading group. They're trying to sort it out. We just watched the fellow of the Mappe team in the national colours of Belgium go through. He seems to be given a free rein at the moment, this band, doesn't he, Steele? They haven't gone and tried to ask him to go back and help the other lots. They've got two options to play, haven't they? He stays in this one, could probably beat him in the sprint, whereas behind the big guns are going to try and catch up at some point in future.
Yes.
We're looking down at the 8 leaders at the moment. The last time check we had 3 minutes and 15 seconds for this group. Some of these riders have been away right since early on at the start, and in that chasing group behind, the last time check just over 3 minutes. Moncassin, Baxter, O'Grady, Polly and Vogels of the GAN team. Boskert in there, Van Bon also of the Rabobank team. Sorensen, we also understand, has got in there. Taffy from the Mappe team with Peters also in that group chasing down at the moment. And Yekimov from US Postal, Casarotta, Pieri and Conte are in there from the Skriniar team. Auger for the Big Mat squad are in there too. Layson is in there from the Mappe team. So there's 24 quite useful riders, but at the moment it must be very difficult for Museo and Peters. We're just waiting for news on our headphones to find out where they've got to, but they had a bit of a comeuppance coming out of the Wallenberg forest, and they banged into each other. It seems to have destroyed their rhythm, and it looks like they're not getting back at the moment. Somebody's just punctured. I've heard the shout come up on the headphones, and I think this must be the bloke who's punctured. Let's wait. Well, they're just shouting out on our headphones, attention the motorcyclists, the prochain, the next part is going to be very, very difficult indeed. So if you're sitting at home watching this one, this is a war of attrition, isn't it? It is a matter of survival at the moment, and the conditions are diabolical, and the lovely smile on the face of Sean Yates alongside me here. You're a masochist, Sean.
Yeah, I know what it's like to be out there. You can see how slippery it is, but obviously they can't go too slow because they're going to lose the group, so it's a fine balance just to try and stay upright, but at the same time go reasonable speed.
I know there are many riders, Sean, that just won't take part in this race because they don't consider it what I might call a normal bike race. I suppose one can agree with them, but it does have a cachet, doesn't it, in the cycling circles. I know that the greatest thing is to get the hour record. That's the blue ribbon. Then you've got to win the Tour de France. That's the great one. But after that, it seems to me this is another of the great epics, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean this is definitely, I'd say, the biggest classic, and it has a great history. And you only have to look around you and see the organisation that goes into it and the amount of people here. You see, to know that it's a big, big race.
Well, we're talking to Graham Baxter this morning, who runs tours out to watch the main classics, and many other people do them as well from Great Britain. But I chat to Graham, he's got 3 coach loads of British spectators come out, so I imagine what with the other travel companies as well, we've probably got about a good half a dozen, if not more, coach loads. We also bumped into people who've come across in their cars to come and watch this race too, because you can, if you get a map and get from Les Keep on the Saturday, good idea of the course, the way that you can go backwards and forwards and see the different places, and you can take part in the whole atmosphere. Look at that! Tremendous. Little piggies come out to watch him play.
I just heard over my headphones that Chamil is 47 seconds behind the main chasing pack, so he's not that far behind.
Great ride then by Chamil. He's had the misfortune to puncture, and that is the problem with this race. You puncture, then you've got to ride yourself back into the group ahead of you. And of course, the big problem too, isn't it, Sean? Even if you get in there at the back, you can't surely can't allow yourself to stay at the back, can you? Someone like Chamil?
No, he's going to have to go straight to the front, and stay out, especially with these really muddy sections coming up. You need to be as near the front as possible, because you only have one guy to slip over in front of you, and you'll be back chasing again.
Well, there we are. This is an unbelievable race. It's something, yes, I know what you're saying back at. Oh, he's gone down exactly what Sean said. He was on the front, he could pick his line, and he's gone.
It's just that slippery. It's a TVM rider by the looks of things.
Yep. And see, then he's got to get his gears going back again, hasn't he? Get his feet in the pedal. Another one's gone. And another one.
And then they put their foot down, then they get, you know, get the cleats bunged up with mud. They can't get it back in again. It's just chaos.
And again, you're in the wrong gear. You've got to flick the gear to get it going, haven't you? And get your rhythm going. The gaps are opening up. No wonder the headphones were echoing with the sound from the race radio to say to the motorcyclists, be careful here, because when a motorbike comes down, it can cause disaster. It can bang into the spectator, bang into the riders too as well.
And often one of the problems is the motorbikes, they also crash, but we haven't seen so many motorbikes, and here we see the cars, the riders just squeezing past on the outside. I think this is going to be a bit of an epic.
Well, if you're going Saturday shopping, no, it's Sunday, you can't go Sunday shopping, you go Sunday shopping, can't you? I should postpone it if I were you, whatever you were thinking of doing. If it's pouring down with rain, I nearly said something else then, it's pouring down with rain at home, you can't mow the lawn, can you? So just watch this race as it evolves and watch these chaps battling. And under these sort of conditions, although the starmen are trying to come back, it allows a little group like this we've got at the front to stay away a bit more, because we saw that chase, the peloton was totally disorganised by those crashes, which allows this front group here, who seems to survive, to go on even more. So this is playing right in their hands.
It is, yeah. Like you say, they're not panicking so much. They can pick their way better on the pavé, and consequently not fall down as much. Although this group looks as though it's thinned down a bit, and you know, they've been at it a long time. But they have to try and push on and make the most of it.
Well, they went away. I'm just having a look on my notes here. That they were away right back on the 24th section. So. In fact, it's blown away in the wind. I haven't got it any longer.
They've probably been out there 80 kilometres
at least.
By now, yeah,
at least. They were way out when before we came on air, weren't they? So they were an hour and something now, so they've nearly 2 hours. And those are our 5 years in. 83 is Dirkson's of the Lotto squad. That is 16. That's Steele's of the MAPE team, the Belgian champion. Morrow for the Cofidis team is number 126. Gouverneau 237 in the big mat, and Riche for the Polti team number 218. So that's the survivors of this one, and just about each of those riders have been with that group. We had some 25 men who started the action way back down the road. One by one they drifted off, and you can see the say he's come off too, by the way. If I look at his knees, he's been tended on his way through, but he's managed to get his way back up with this leading group as well. And we're just getting a time check that it's 2 minutes and 40 seconds to the head of what's left of the peloton. That peloton wasn't more than about, 25 riders?
No.
And we started today with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 5, 4, 6, 25 teams started, with between 6 and 8 riders, mainly 8 riders each. So you can see it really has been a decimation. And John Pearce, the photographer, was saying to me at the start, he reckoned that no more than 35 or 40 riders would be maximum to finish. And I said, no, I didn't think that. I think we'd get at least 100 finished. And he was going to put some money on it, but I refused to put money on it. And I'm glad I didn't, because something tells me we were lucky to finish 50 riders at this rate.
Yeah, I was telling you early on about this rider Dirkson's here, who's in the lead group riding for Lotto. Up until this year, he was working full time as well as riding as a professional bike rider. He was working in a spray paint, spraying up body parts for cars. He got a lucky break with the Lotto team this year, and he looks like he's making the most of it.
He certainly repaid them, because I remember in the game for Evergum last week, he was having a go there too as well. So he's on a good ride at the moment. He's been allowed a certain amount of freedom. Their main man, of course, is Andre Chamil, but he's back in this group on your screen right now, struggling to make contact with our leaders. To you once again here watching the Paris Roubaix. This is our leading group of riders now. They've gone back up to 10. There's been 2 of them yo-yoing backwards and forwards, Roquier and Debian, and they've now got themselves back into that little group. So the Cofidis team, you see the team car coming up here, they have now got 2 men back in that group. Cofidis is very keen to do well today in this race. They have a headquarters near Lille, I think it is, not far away from the finish, and they have got lots of people coming out to watch the race today, and therefore they'll be very pleased, because at the finish at the track at Roubaix where we are now, and you see they're on the 14th of the section of pavé, and that particular one they've now got they've covered 198 kilometres. They've got 68 kilometres to go to the finish. 2,800 metres of diabolical pavé yet again. The spectators a bit thin on the ground at the finish at Roubaix at the track today, but many of them will be from Cofidis, and so they're in the zone now, Oshi, on their way through towards the final in Roubaix, the 14th of the zones. They're counting down all the way, so we've got from 14 through, so there's still 14 zones yet to go before they're freed of the terrible battering they're getting here. And there you can see 69 kilometres it is. I said what I think 68, but in fact they're going 69 kilometres for that leading group. You're looking at them now, and in that leading group then is Steele's right in the centre of your picture, or on right hand side of your picture now, the Belgian champion. Together with Riche of the Psycho team. That's him in the black and red on your camera now. The red, white and blue colours are the colours of the Cofidis riders, Francis Moreau and Laurent Debian, who's fought his way back again. Van Heijsewijk is in there for the Rabobank team. That's him in the orange and white colours. And just hanging off the back here is the Polti rider Rokia, who's doing quite a bit of a yo-yo job. Another yellowish colours a bit further on up is Gouveneau from the Big Mat team, and Rick of the Psycho team has picked him out as well. So that's your 8 men in the leading group now. 2, 4, 6, 8. Yes, 8 men now. And the main pack is round about 20 riders. That's all that's left in the main peloton, unless some more come up. And the big news just joined us is that Museo and Peters have not joined up with what's left of the main group, and it looks like they seem to be losing ground yet again. These two keep going off the back and don't seem to have the strength to stay with it. They fight their way back on the smoother part, but can't quite balance themselves over the cobbles. Is there a certain sort of rider, Sean, he's sitting alongside me, who knows this thing like the back of his hand, is there a certain sort of rider that can ride these cobbles? Do you have to be of a certain weight, or is it just a matter of skill, or is it a matter of just sheer bloody-mindedness?
I think obviously, yeah, you have to be a big and powerful guy to push a big gear. At this particular section, is very slightly uphill. It's very bumpy. So if you're not, up to it, you could soon lose the wheel. But obviously, I think the bigger guys are an advantage, being able to push a bigger gear and roll along a bit. If you're small, you get bounced around a lot, and it's difficult to hold a steady line. But
Puncture coming up, and this is a quick change by the Mavic men. They've got those motorbikes out there, and you see the muddy wheels there. They're the ones they've already changed, and they'll go back to the cars, get some spares, because as fast as they're puncturing, they're having to replace the punctured tyres, and it's a very hard day again for the mechanics on this race. The backup's enormous for this race. When you see the work that goes into putting this on, and of course even before it happens, they check the course. We saw Monsieur Béchot this morning down in Compiègne. He'd been over the course again yesterday to make sure it was rideable, because earlier in this week it had been underwater in certain parts, but now the riders are able to cover the course, however diabolical it might be. This is the hell of the north, and it is a race for hard men. And I would like to mention now the British performances over the years. Ballyhoban, third in 1972, and sitting alongside me here was Sean Yates, who finished in 5th spot in 1994, 11th in 1995. The gap now 2 minutes and 25 seconds back to the chasing group. Tom Simpson was 6th in 1965. He actually had 6 finishes in his race. That was his best place. We've seen our good friend Paul Sherwin out round the race today. He actually rode something like about 15. He was 15th in 1983. He only finished 3 times out of 7 attempts to take part in the race. Ballyhoban, undoubtedly our major man there with that 3rd place. 9 times he finished in the race. 3rd in 72, 10th in 1969. But our thoughts go back, as you look at these conditions, to when this race first started. And in 1896, when Joseph Fischer of Germany won the race, a man called Arthur Linton from Wales was run out 4th in the end. They started the race in 1896 in Paris to come up here to the velodrome to celebrate the fact that it was up here and to get people to be interested in it. They start on Easter Sunday like we've got now. They had mass at 3 a.m. in the morning. Think about that. 3 a.m. in the morning in 1896. They started at 5 o'clock in the morning. 48 of them actually started the race, and Arthur Linton finished fourth. He was actually away with Joseph Fischer, the eventual leader, when in Amiens he was knocked off by a dog, and that's what happened to the British rider Arthur Linton. Otherwise we might have had a man on the podium way back in 1896. For Sean Kelly from Ireland, he won the race in 1984 and 1986, so English-speaking riders have been up there in first spot. Steve Brown was second in 1990, Sean Kelly having a third place also in 1985. And I have good news for you listening back in Ireland. They're going to take the Tour de France through Sean Kelly Square, and that was the verdict from Jean-Marie Leblanc this morning. I'd heard the rumour, he'd been over to Ireland during the week. He had the same sort of trip that I went on just about a month ago, when we went down to Calais-on-Shore and looked at the problems of this narrow part of Sean Kelly Square. And there was certain correspondence in cycling as he watched these lads going around that pothole, of a certain gentleman who wrote a letter who said that they should be happy it went there and don't worry about it not going through Sean Kelly Square. And I wrote a letter and said, well, they've got two left turns, they should go through Sean Kelly Square. And guess what? They're going through Sean Kelly Square. And Jean-Marie Blanc said that as they're going to go left and left, it'll thin the field down and it won't be that dangerous. Hooray, I say. We're going to Sean Kelly Square. To all you people in Ireland, time for a drop of the dark stuff. I'm very happy for that. I'm very happy for my friends over there. It was a great discussion point we're over there. It's just something which I think for Sean has been, you know, one of the big top cycling in recent years to actually have the race. His square isn't very big, by the way. It's just that the road widens a little bit, and it's just past Jim O'Keefe's house as well. Goes through that archway out the other side, and Tony's bar as well on the left-hand side. I can see the people in Calais-on-Shore. They probably have a day's holiday right now. Well, they have tomorrow off, can't they? It's Easter Monday, isn't it? But so that's it. Seals, ducks and a go back for this race. But good news for you in Ireland. We're going through Sean Kelly Square on the Tour de France. Whoopee! Well, at least the sun's coming out now. No stranger to riding in Ireland, Sean Yates alongside me, winner of a couple of stages of the Nissan Classic. One of those, an enormous lone breakaway into Tralee. Watching this, and I'm sure that Sean will be happy that it's going through his namesake's place on that race. Nice to get out of Ireland, isn't it, Sean? You used to enjoy the old Nissan Classic, eh?
Yeah, it's a great race. You know, I've rode it a few times, and the terrain over there is fantastic for cycling. The public are great, and I'm sure the Tour de France going over there is going to be a great success.
Well, we're all looking forward to it. Jean-Marie Leblanc's had a good time over there. I went across to have a look at the course and talk to some of the people, and he was all smiles this morning there. Moncassin trying to close that gap down. Why is he a little bit distant at the moment?
He's not. He's just chasing there's three guys off the front, I think. There,
right.
The peloton seems to be splitting up there a bit. I think I saw Wilfred Peters and Eros Poli and the Rabobank rider there forcing the pace, so it looks like...
Oh, they're playing the hand then to let Poli go away and Moncassin come up to him, because it looks like he's closing the gap very well. Very powerful. This is typical. Look at this. This is typically his course, isn't it, eh? He always rides well here, doesn't he?
He rides very well. He's a fantastic bike handler. He does a lot of motocross and motorcycle trials. And this is, you know, being a Frenchman, this is, and especially in Gand, they have a good history of winning this race, so he's really, really motivated. Although I don't think his form's quite as good as last year. He's signalling to Poli to ride there, I think, once he gets up to him, so could be a bit of a manoeuvre.
Well, the sun is shining out the course, the hail is coming down at the finish line at the moment, and here, look at Moncassin. We just picked up the shot. I looked up from my notes here and saw him do a quick flick of the gears round the corner. He takes it, looks so easy. Some make it look so easy, don't they? Others would go around there, you know, falling on their elbows.
Yeah, like I said, he's a great bike handler. He can pull the wheelies and do all sorts of BMX type stunts. So yeah, this is an ideal course for him.
It looks like he's got company coming across at the moment, so there may be a little group of 6 forming here to chase after our leaders, and the gap. I'm just looking for the last time check. We got a bit carried away. Couldn't hear much on my headphones at the moment what the time checks are, because it's getting very splintered right now. And so with Moncassin got company.
I think they were about 2 minutes behind the the front 8 riders there, which is also splitting up. So
yeah, intriguing. Nothing coming up off the race radio at the moment, is there? So
no.
Perhaps they've lost contact with us a lot somehow. Because the difficulty is to be in the right place. The race radio relies upon motorcycles, usually just one motorcycle that goes backwards and forwards. Well, they're calling up actually. Ballerini, Peters, Moncassin in this group. Backstead, Buscard in. Van Bron in this group. That's the group, but 2 more coming up to join them now. So the attempts of much of the GAN team to rip the thing to pieces might come to nothing now. 2 more are coming up, and this is really much turning into a GAN versus Mapei race, isn't it?
I mean, they've got Ballerini, Peters, and they're very strong riders. The group behind is not very big, probably 10, 12 riders. So I mean, this could be a crucial part of the race.
And there we are, we can just look at where it is now, the sector they're going through now. So Peters, Ballerini, Moncassin, Backstead, Polly amongst this little group right now. There you can see the countdown on some of the little sections they're going through. They're actually going much more into the wind now, because that going from right to left, the wind was drifting in from that left-hand side, so they've got a bit of a wind now, which may slow down that group, and the chasers may come up to them. One thing I haven't had, and I don't think we've got it on our notes here, is any note about where that Museo has got to. But look at that, a beautiful line out now of the of an echelon. This is real typical bike racing stuff, when the wind is nagging and blowing you and making life difficult. And this crosswind really causing problems now, but I think that chasing group might pull them back. Any thoughts on this one, Sean?
Well, I mean, they've gone away, they've committed themselves a bit, so they're going to have to, they should push on, you know, they can't afford to wait, and I'm not sure, I think they may stay away.
Well, this group here don't seem too concerned, do they, at the moment? I'm surprised they're sort of hanging about here. Conte, they're looking back for his team to come up, the team car, I think, looking...
We've had no word of Zanini or Museo, nope. So I'm assuming that they're out of the race.
Well, Steels, Gouverneur and Dirksen are in the lead at the moment. Here are these are 3. We've just had it come up over our race radio. They're away and they've gone again. That little group which has been 8, then 6, then 3, then 6, then 8. It's been changing all the way through now. And here we go on this little section of the Pavé. Pavé section number 13. At this point, 64 kilometres to go to the end of the race. Short, sharp one, that. Not a long one by any means. And they're through it then. So they've now got some... just inside 64 kilometres to go to the finish in Roubaix. These are the 3 leaders through that section of Pavé. And now with the zone 13, they've got 12 sections to go. This is what's the peloton split precisely, and we watch there Ballerini going through together with Peters, and this little battle between GAN and exhibit to say it here, by the way. I've cut into that look. Number 55 Van Bon covered in dirt on his shoulders. In fact, I mean, last year he also looped the loop and ended up in the ditch, didn't he? That was on the dry condition. Yeah, he was with a breakaway or the leading group, and down he went. But he's got Sorensen with him at the moment, and Van Heijswijk is not farther up the road. Van Heijswijk's been with the leading group, but he seems to be shelled out of it now. So maybe he may come back to this group and help Sorensen and Van Bon of the Rabobank team, because then we will have 3 teams in contention, won't we? The GAN team, the Mapei team, and the team from Rabobank. Chamil has been fighting to get himself back into the second half of the peloton, which is completely split now. So it looks like some of our star favourites, Museo and Zanini and Chamil, have had the misfortune, the curse which hits some people on the Paris Roubaix, to have to fight their way back for a long time. But it's not over yet. Even this is section 13, because now in section 13 they still have something like they come out of it some 63 kilometres to go to the finish.
I noted that Taffy had also come up here. I think he came up with Sorensen So you know, this is definitely a strong group now, and to bring these guys back is going to take some doing.
Oh, the dead centre of the town. These are our 3 leaders. They're now in section 12, and section 12 is a section of 3,000 metres, and it'll take them, when they come out of it, 60 kilometres from the finish. Ain't over yet. Not until the fat lady sings. Well, I can't see a fat lady inside here at Roubaix, but we're watching a fascinating race, and I hope you back at home are enjoying it too as well. Those are our 3 leaders. We're just getting some time checks coming at the moment. He's gone! That's Tom Steels has gone down. What a great shame. He's been out there right the way through. In the early break he went there, and now he's had the misfortune to come down in what is only 1 stage removed from an out-and-out farm track. In fact, I suppose he is out-and-out farm. Look at that, the slippy state of it. Bang, and down he went. This race is full of accidents, and these are the problems that beset everybody. There's a great book, by the way, published by my good friend Bomley Video, and it is about the Paris Roubaix, the history of it, by a man called Pascal Sargent. I've got it with me, and it's full of interesting pictures of the Paris Roubaix over the years, and you'll get the address out of, yes, Tom Steele's come down, you'll get the address out of the Cycling Publications, by the way, and it's well worth having. They've also got a tape of the Paris Roubaix, it's 100 years, and to just read the stories of what happened to riders over the years, like we saw there to Tom Steele, and they'll still fight their way back and to get in hope of getting some victory. They're the Marshall brothers look how he's sending the motorcycles on, because they do not want the motorbikes and the cars to come down this road. It's just so slippy, so dangerous, so we're relying now upon our helicopter to pick it up. And if you think, when this race goes back then to 1896, they actually, to begin with in the early years, they also had motor pacing and motorcycles, and even had tricycles who took part in the that's racing motorcycle tricycles in the early Paris-Roubaix. It must have been absolute mayhem. So no wonder this race has got this tremendous cachet about. This is a 96 Paris-Roubaix, the Enfer du Nord, and there they go again, round the spectator, across the grass.
I just noted that they'd picked up some of the guys from the leading group there on that section, so they're not very far behind the 3 leaders.
Watch this again, as he lost control, zoomed in and just took off. At that moment, Sean, you just can't, you just go where your bike goes, don't you?
I think that was Sarsen there. He had to, he managed to stay upright. That was some great bike handling.
This is the longest cyclo-cross race in the world. Oh, dear me. Yes, it's still a bike race though, and they fight their way through this one. And when you see them in the showers afterwards, all haggard and drawn, and cuts and bruises, and the faces dirty with the mud, everybody's got, what's the atmosphere like when you finish, Sean?
I think, if you've made it to the finish, you're relieved, and you have a great sense of achievement, and you're happy that it's over.
Well, I was talking to Steve Rover this morning from the Mutual Seine team. He rode it last year, got to 240 kilometres, just climbed off. He was so far at the back. And he said to me, one thing I want to do today is to finish. I want to say that I actually finished the Paris-Roubaix. And look at the state of this race today.
Yes, Ballerini leading that group there. I think it could be his day today.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, the motorcycles they have allowed through, by the way, those you see, those fellows in blue, those are the gendarmes, and for this particular race, the gendarmes have special motocross type motorcycles with big knobbly tyres on high bottom brackets, so they can actually ride along the route, keep it clear for the riders. And they also saw that only the Mavic service cars are allowed along here, and the other people will be looping around to meet them at the end of what is 3,000 metres of very, very hard racing conditions, even under the best of circumstances, but it's a right mess today. I was also talking this morning to Marcel Wust, who grabbed himself some stage victories in the Circuit du Sarthe, and he'd been press ganged in to ride for the Festina team, and he's ridden it before, and he said, you either like the Paris Roubaix, you don't. He said, I don't like it, but I have to ride it. My job is to ride for Bortolami, and in the early part of the race make sure he's in contention, but after that he said it's up to him. And but Wust was out there having a go, and I've presume, Sean, that's so. You either like it or you hate it, this one, eh?
That's right.
There must be no in between.
No, like I was saying before, you know, you've got the riders who have to ride because their team is entered, and their aim is to try and get as far as they can without hurting themselves. And there's the other half of the guys who really want to try and do something, and you know, they're going to go for it. You can see that Ballerini is really stretching it out here big time, and Moncassin is drifting back there in third place. So I think, like I said, it could be Ballerini's day.
But there's a hell of a... We've got 60 kilometres to go, and this race is spread all over the countryside. I've watched this for many years, and I don't think I've seen one as bad and as spread as this, Sean. You've ridden several of them. I mean, this seems to be early on to have such a spread-out field.
It is very spread out. I mean, I think it was all because of the Allenberg Forest. There were so many crashes and what have you, and they came out of there and they just think it's every man for themselves, and they just go from there. And as we can see, it's just splintered.
You can just marvel at the perseverance, though, to continue to ride under these conditions. Of course, there's nowhere to go, is he? You can't sit in the side of for your team car to go. He's not going to come through, is he?
He's trying to get to the finish as fast as possible.
There's Moncassin in the middle here, but he's got plenty of Maffei for support. Well, not for sport, but cause of trouble. So certainly Ballerini can fly away from this lot. And there again, they're on Colnago bicycles, the Maffei team. You can see with the straight forks, but the somewhat longer wheelbase on them. We're back up with our two leaders now. This man, Dirksen, has been riding. I'm sure he's around. There's just two of them now because Steels came off. And so this is what's left of our breakaway group. And just big Matt rider Teddy Gouveneau together with Dirksen in the lead. And look at the state of the bikes. They've been out ploughing fields with them, wouldn't you? What they nearly have been doing.
Some of them have, anyway. No, these guys are going to really push on, you know. It's their sort of 15 minutes of fame as they come through the second free zone here. And they're going to make the most of it. And this in 94 is where Chamil took off and went from there to the finish alone. So in fact, it is quite a long way to go, but it is possible to go solo from here, as Chamil shows in 94.
Yeah, 59.5 kilometres it says on the list here. They come through that feeding stage. They've still got 11 sections of pavé to go. Now let's pick up who's coming in between, because of the group of 8 riders they had, they've been drifting back into this tail end group here now. So what's left of the main peloton?
Here we're looking at Ballerini, he's broken away from that group a bit, looking around.
Do you think he'll persist? Well, as you say, Chamil did it, didn't he?
That's it. And you know, who's going to chase behind? There's two Maffei riders sitting on Moncassin and another GAN rider. He's got a decent gap there.
Well, there's two GAN though, isn't it? Is that Polly? Figueiros?
I'm not sure. No, I don't think that's Polly.
Or was it Vogels? But certainly the two GAN, two Maffei, and Ballerini's gone down the road. What a fascinating race we've got here. We've got two blokes down the road, Gouveneau and Dirksen, who are going eyeballs out for the glory of getting this great race here. We've got Ballerini on his Todd trying to get over to them and get away from this little lot. So we've got two GAN, two Maffei, and they really are the roll call of who's who in this race. And yet, way back behind, we've got people like Chamil and Museo way out of contention. What a race.
And of course, just behind these two, we have Tom Steels, who fell off, and
yes,
maybe he'd wait for Ballerini and do a really good job and tow Ballerini up a bit.
Well, these two riders might survive. They might be swept up and they might find it, but they both look very strong, hefty blokes, don't they? They've got the sort of solidarity to take them over the pavé and to stand the pressure of this long, hard race, which really batters the body, batters the mind, batters the bicycle as they're going in towards Roubaix. We're going to take a short break. Do stay with us. This is going to be a great race. Well, we've seen a real race so far here, and in the feeding zone The gap was 3:40 between the two leaders. Sorry, three.
I think we just saw a bit of a coming to with the motorbike and spectator there, and flashing back to the leaders.
I'm a bit out of breath because I had to go and see a man who had a dog, you see.
I'm not sure what the time gap was there, but I know that Ballerini has swept up Steele.
I left you in charge of my watch.
I didn't know it was my job. Sorry about that.
Oh, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Two leaders are pushing on still. I'm not sure whether they know that Ballerini has taken off and is chasing them down, but like I said before, they're going to make the most of it and push on. They still look quite strong, and they're both very capable riders.
Well, inside 60 kilometres, that's around about 30, probably about 34 miles to go now to the finish, and somewhat dry conditions on the road. It's very difficult to judge what's happening here. We've had rainstorms. It's been as black as your hat. You can see back over the distance there, a bit of black behind the back of Bill's mother. It's been like that all the way through. Suddenly the sun's come out, then it's gone black again, then we have hailstorms, then it's rained, then it's gone nice again, and it's left very, very difficult conditions for these riders. But the spectators have been enjoying watching, and here's Ballerini, I think it is. Heck, no, it isn't. This is from the GAN team. Is that Vogels?
So great, yeah.
They're all over the place, aren't they?
Yeah. That's Vogels.
Well, O'Grady had a bad crash earlier on and got back in. Vogels also had a crash too as well. And Ballerini's got some passengers now, because he's got Tom Stills with him from the Mappe team, and also the Rada Risch from the Psycho Cannondale squad. And Ballerini's doing all the work at the moment, but Stills is with him, so I don't think he's able to contribute at the moment, but we're not surprised, because Stills have been away with that group that took off right early in the race, so he's really, he can contribute now. That's,
yeah,
yeah.
He knows that he's got to do that, he possibly can, and he's going to give it his all. We're looking here at Sorensen, I presume, and maybe Van Bon, who are somewhere in between.
They're just about 1 minute 15 seconds back, by the way, these two I just heard coming up.
Sorensen taking a bit of a
O'Grady also is behind them. So O'Grady's behind them at just about another 15 seconds back behind those two we saw there. So the little group's almost split by a minute each on the road right now, and Ballerini driving this one on with Steele just behind him, and sensibly I think that the Psycho Rada Risch is doing nothing, but I think the gap's opening up here back to Sorensen and Van Bon.
I think it's just going to be a long time trial to the finish now.
For everybody.
That's it. Just in between Sorensen and Van Bon, we've got, this must be Peters.
It's Peters' group, isn't it?
Peters,
yeah. With Moncassin, yeah.
Taffy, and another GAN rider who I'm not sure that is.
Well, Vogel,
Backstead.
Yes.
Backstead.
Yeah. So it'd be Vogels we saw on his own, wouldn't it, further back? Yeah.
Obviously, these Mappe riders aren't going to contribute to the chase.
They've got a tow, haven't they? Yeah, they've got a simple tow.
You know.
They've got two men down the road. Peters and they've got Ballerini and Steels down the road. The GANs have got nobody down the road, so they've got to do the chasing. Poor old Baxter's going to have to bury himself here, isn't he? There we are. That's the second group on the road. We've still got two riders down the road. Derrickson out there at the moment, who managed to survive that stretch of the course which Steels crashed, unfortunately, and came down. There were literally 3 men out there, but now they're down to 2. So Steels, Ballerini and Risch are at 50 seconds on our two leaders.
I don't think Ballerini can let Steels do too much in the front, but I think he'll be slowing them down, and that could maybe mean that these guys can catch up, and I can just see Sorensen's group behind these guys, so he has to push on, otherwise he risks it's all going to come back together.
This is certainly a section where the conditions are better for chasing, aren't they? If you get quick group bits of pavé together, there's not much challenge for the recover, is there? But we're coming out this one now, and we've got 56. We're coming on to a good 5 kilometres before we get the next sector. So they've got a good 5 kilometres to set themselves down, and after the next sector, again, there's going to be something around about another 5 kilometres. So there's little dribs and drabs of pavé ahead of them, and now they've got it. Now this will be interesting because Sorensen and I think it's Van Bon that's with there at the moment. Those two riders, Sorensen was chasing with his teammates. Well, that means they're not going to hang about.
Horsepower, and that's going to be 4 of them chasing Ballerini.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Yes.
But at the same time, Taffy and Peter's going to get a free ride, so I think Ballerini really has to try and go for it now. He's maybe just waiting to the next section before he leaves these two.
Well, what's at stake at the end of this all? Why are these chaps knocking hell out of themselves on the way in towards Roubaix on this 266.5 kilometre course, you might ask, on this the Hell of the North, the 96th version of this great race? It is because there's no less than £40,000 worth of prizes, 400,000 francs will be the prizes as we watch our two leaders here, Dirksen on the front, together with Gouvenou of the Big Mat team, who are still trying to get themselves a lion's share of that prize money. If they get to finish at the end of the race, they will get 150,000 French francs for the victor. That's £15,000 for the winner of the race today, £10,000 to the man who's second, £5,000 to the man who's third. But as much as being on the podium and the roll call of honour now coming down to 14 seconds to the chasers, it also means your name goes there and you collect a hatful of money, and the cheers of the crowd here will be heard when they also hand off a thumping great lump of pavé too. Everybody that wins this race takes home a big lump of pavé, about half the size of a loaf, and you can put that on your mantelpiece and look at it for the rest of your life, and people say, what the hell are you doing with that lump of rock on your mantelpiece? I won the Paris Roubaix. Well, those are our two leaders. The gap is only 14 seconds back to this chasing group of 3. They're coming up now into the next section, section 10 of the race, and that does leave them with 51 kilometres to go to the finish of the Paris Roubaix. And behind these 3, there's a nice little group chasing. Now, this is another one where you've got to keep your fingers crossed, and someone looks to me as if he's lost his bottle, hasn't he, at the moment, or he's lost his way, having already come off in no uncertain terms. For old Steels was panicking slightly. Dear me.
Yeah, Ballerini's just left those two and he's straight up to the leaders, and I expect he'll go straight past.
And there he is, he's caught them, he's gone through. He's 14 seconds down, he's now come up. Ballerini then has now come up to the leading group, and the question is, can those chasers behind him regroup and come up? Because certainly with Sorensen and his teammate catching up with the two Gann men, but Ballerini's pressing on there. He won this race in 1995, did Ballerini. He was second in 1993 when he was only tired with the way. He threw his arms up. You may remember he watched on Eurosport in 1993 when Duclassel and Ballerini sprinted into the track, and Ballerini claimed the victory, threw his arms in the air, but alongside him Duclassel had pushed his bike across the line just a fraction ahead of him, and so Ballerini said, I will never come back to the Paris Roubaix. Well, he came back the next year, Ballerini, in 1994, and he was third, and then he went on in 1995 to win the race. So Ballerini is one of the most consistent riders in the Paris Roubaix, and now he's determined to go it alone in towards the finish. But can the rest of the chasers do anything about this? Our early leaders here have really now, I think, blown the gasket in no uncertain terms. A great shame then for the work that Michael Risch of the Psycho Cannondale team had put in to the race so far, and to Dirksen of the Lotto team, who seems to be fighting his way back to stay in contention with some decent chance of getting his hands on some sticky money at the end of all this one. But and Gouvenou has come back now. I think this is Gouvenou, so, and Risch is coming up to him. Well, they're all over the place. This is some race, isn't it?
Yeah, they're all over the place. He's really definitely doing a ride. This Dirksen. He's hung on to Ballerini. And you know, before you were talking about the ideal build for Paris Roubaix, and I think Ballerini is the ideal build. He's very strong, he's heavy, and he can push a big gear. And we're seeing today that he's very effective on the cobbles.
Yeah, well, I said he was about his first, second, and third, but he also was fifth, by the way, in 1991 and 96. So of all the people we've got in this race, he's probably got one of the biggest roll call of honours in recent years, and he must know this course like the back of his hand now, and he's been riding so far extremely comfortably.
And of course he's had very good form since the beginning of the year. He came second in Torino, he was up there in Flanders, and you know, he's really motivated for this race.
Well, Gouveau's been blown out now, so great shame for the big Matt Big 93 rider. He's been out there trying so hard since the early part of this race, but Dirksen is certainly doing the ride of his life now, and again he's got the same sort of body build of the riders that can stand the sort of pressure of this race, and he's doing a sensible thing. He's on to Ballerini's wheel. He's going to just hang on in there at the moment.
Ballerini was waving you through, but I don't think it'd be wise to come through. I certainly wouldn't if I was him.
I'm just having a quick little look to see what that section 25 was, the distance from the finish, because they were away before that one. So he went away around about 161 kilometres from the finish. They're less than 60 to go now. So Dirksen's been away for over 100 kilometres, hasn't he? So that's over 60 miles with either the main group or surviving a little short group of 2 or 3 riders. So he's had a hell of a long time out there. Ballerini did also a damn good ride to get up there, because one time he was in a group for the peloton that was 7 minutes and 50 seconds down on that leading group, so he's done well to come across. So
yeah, Ballerini's got a lead of 1 minute on the main chasing group, what I call the main chasing group, which is
6 men.
6 men, Moncassin.
Yeah, with Moncassin and Vogel, there was also, well, there aren't going to get much chasing being done by the two Mappes, but with Sorensen, with his teammate, and that they may, but they're 1 minute down now then, as we're just coming out of that section, with now just some, less than 50 kilometres to go to finish.
Still quite a long way to go, and you know, with 6 guys chasing, only 4 of those are chasing actually. Ballerini's committed himself.
And there's jumping around there too.
Mappei riders. Maybe they want to try and drop bridge up. Maybe they're slowing it down.
Yeah.
Although Taffy doesn't look to be going that slow.
He's riding off the front, he's going away, and Fred's got to close it down. There's Moncassin trying to come across now to close that one down. The 2 Rabobank riders don't seem to be aiding much this, do they?
Strange goings on there.
Well, Fred's on his own. Oh, they didn't pull up his name there, but his teammate's still there. Is that Vogel still with him? Here we are.
No, that's Baxter.
Baxter, that's right, yeah. Baxter. So you've still got a teammate there at the moment.
I'm not sure what Peters was doing there.
What did he try to do? It didn't work either. So those are our 6 men at 1 minute at the moment. They're what's left of the peloton. I say we start out this morning with 25 teams. We've got the peloton is less than the number of teams that started. And we've got 2 Gant, 2 from Rabobank, 2 from Mappé, chasing down leaders at the moment, which is Ballerini together with Dirksen. Oh, he's actually taken over and doing some work here. He's riding himself into the ground here at the moment, Ludo Dirksen's.
Maybe word's got to him that Jamil's his game is over, so, you know, he's been given a free hand and doing his shot for glory.
Well, he's coming up to 34 4 years of age on the 14th of October. And I mean, last year he just had a couple of second places in local Belgian crits. He was third in the round of Cologne, 6th Veendal, 10th in the Grand Prix Aesberg. He's done nothing like we're seeing him do now, so keep your fingers crossed that he survives the race today. That is on your screens, that little 30 seconds to the second group, 1:03 to the third group. It doesn't tell the story at all. This is our leader, Ballerini, at the moment, together with Dirksens. And whilst you're away on the break, they turned into a sharp left hairpin. You might have seen just before he went to break. And poor old Tom Steels crashed down yet again. And the sight of him covered in mud, his back of his bike was just filthy as it could be. And so he was getting back on his bike, and at the same time we heard that Backstead's had some mechanical problems too, so all the chases are either falling apart at the seams. Now this man Ballerini at the moment has got a pretty well a clear run in at this stage, and he's towing this man Dirksens with him, who really is having the ride of his life. We've not seen him do anything like this before, and we wish him well. So he's a Belgian. Whilst we're watching these two go, I've had a fax, by the way, from Norman and Rebecca Callaghan, who came out to watch the Tour of Flanders. They come from Forward in Preston, and they told me a lovely story. I can't get through all of it now with this race split like it is, but how when they went out to see the Tour of Flanders, the local fire brigade service in Belgium, there were 3 of the men who were marshalling the course and closing it down. When they found they come out from Birmingham, they got a pretty grotty map out of local Belgian newspaper showing them where the Tour of Flanders went. They took them, they said, you follow us, and they took them in their, behind their car to various parts where they were marshalling, and then when they got to go back to the main part of the course, and they said, look, you'll never find your way back, come back and watch it on television. They took them into their houses and they saw the race on TV and watched Merceau win, because their daughter Rebecca is a great Mappe fan, and so Norman said, well, I give a special mention to Danny, Ronnie and Rita, and all members of Volunteer Fire Brigade Service in Belgium. I don't think we're listening to the English version on Eurosport, Norman, but certainly I'm quite happy to extend the thanks that you had for the warm hospitality of the Belgians when you went to see the Tour of Flanders. So the Belgians, hard people they are when they come to riding bikes, got a heart of gold when it comes to looking after Brits going across to watch the race. So best place to watch these races is on the side of the road. It looks like Backstead's got back, by the way, now. We heard that he'd had a problem, but it looks like he's now got back into this little group here. But Tom Steels is the most unfortunate man of the match, who's had yet another crash.
Looks like Ballerini's taken off here.
There can't be much left in the poor old legs of Dirksen.
No,
he's been out there, over 100 kilometres now with the group. So we had, 25 formed, and one by one, like 10 green bottles, he accidentally fell, and they all fell down one after the other. And the poor chap now is being distanced.
It looks like a hard section here, and this is where Ballerini's decided to make his move, and just aiming for home now.
Shades of Chamil, isn't it, this one?
That's it.
When Chamil rode it, because Chamil, if you just switched on and wondering what's happened to the great, I was going to say Russian, he's now the Belgian national citizen, he had the misfortune to puncture. He got back, he had some more problems as well, and we also know that Merceau crashed against Peters and he came off too and doesn't seem to have made it either. So it's left Ballerini here to ride on in towards the finish in Roubaix, and the way he's been going so far, from this point onwards, I can say barring accidents, you know the course well. We've seen some very, very nasty bits of pavé, Sean. Is there anything that's disgusting ahead, or is it pretty well, much more, I would say manicured, but a more smoother service?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any pavé left that compared to the Ambo Forest. There are a couple of bad sections near the end, 3 or 4 to go, but you know, for a man like Ballerini, unless he blows up, he should be able to take it all in his stride.
There's our chasing group. They're just about to pull back Dirksens and Gouvenaud. So add to that one Dirksen and Gouvenaud. Well, they've decided to put Gouvenaud in there, and Dirksen and Risch. And Risch as well. So they're all going to come back in here now, and now that means that Ballerini is on his own, and Backstead is really riding himself to standstill, isn't it?
I've never really heard of him before. I think he must be a new pro.
And I think that Sorensen wants the speed to come up. He's come up on the inside inside now, and I think he's trying to move this thing on a bit because that doesn't look as if it's going the sort of speed he wants. They've really got to work hard, and Ballerini, the way he's going so strongly, he can hang in there. But there's a lot of good talent here, because if Sorensen and Moncasson decide to ride well, and Baxter's doing the work like this, then there's another chasing group coming up. On the Skyline, there you see them. What a race.
But yeah, no, like you say, they want to push on, these guys, but they also want to try and win the race. And guys like Moncasson are not particularly noted for riding for long stints on the front, neither Sorensen, so it's a tricky situation. And all the time they're towing along Taffy and Wilfred Peters, who are also very good riders, so you know it's difficult for them.
Well, Baxter's come into the team from the Palman squad, where he rode, which is a little sort of low-budget Belgian team, isn't it? So he must have got great experience riding over the Belgian cobbles and the tough, hard races that they have in Belgium. But he's riding certainly better than I've ever seen him do before. So Ballerini on his own, Baxter leading through here, and Ballerini really has decided to go for goal on this occasion, or in fact, to be more precise, something like £15,000 of money, and go it the hard way on his own. It has been done before. Actually, on the run in towards the finish, having a quick recheck of the map and trying to remember where it was, because he twists and turns all over this course as such. He's going to be running off the short sections now, with the wind getting in behind him, but after a while he's going to turn again, and the last run in from the sections 4, 2 and 1, he's got the nagging wind again, but running in across from the 8, 7, 6, 5 sections, he'll have the wind behind him, and that'll be to an advantage. And then it turns, and if they've got to close that gap down and make life difficult for him, they've got to start doing it the final 25 kilometres, because the final 25 Ks he's going to find himself heading back into the wind, and on his own that'll make it much more difficult, won't it, Sean?
It will, but his lead's got up to 130 now, so he's definitely pushing on, and you know, I can only see it going up if he keeps going like this.
Well, he's made his move.
He's just so strong.
Yeah, he's made his move, and the wind may be one of the determining factors, and also a lot depends on whether Sorensen can get some assistance to chase down Ballerini, because he really is the one. So 40 kilometres now to go then for Ballerini. So 25 miles left on the Paris Roubaix, this 96th version of this race, but they had 27 sections of pavé, totaling no less than 50 kilometres, bouncing over the rough stones of the north of France. And here the two riders, Taffy and Peters, having a little bit of a council here. They're going to do nothing but sit in the back and be towed along here, and the race with moving on towards the back end now. We've got about 9 of the sections of pavé left ahead of the riders to bounce them about. We've got a little group of something like about another 10 riders trying to come up to them, but this is our leader at the moment on his Colnago bicycle. That is the Ballerini, who undoubtedly of all the riders in this race has the greatest list of success. Let me remind you again then that he was first in 1995, second in 1993, third in 1994 and fifth in 91 and 96. So probably one of the most experienced men in this race, and he's going now away from this group onto that section of pavé, and he's flying across this pavé like it's just smooth tarmac.
It is. Another factor is that this is like the end of the first stage of the season for Ballerini. He knows after this race he's got a decent break. He doesn't compete in the Tour because he suffers from hay fever and things like that. So, you know, he's flat out for the beginning of the year. This is the culmination of the first section of the year for him, and he knows that, you know, he wants to finish it off in style.
And he's doing what he can to finish on style. Zone 7 is on now, 1,400 metres of pavé, inside 40 kilometres to go. somewhat smoother conditions here, but it can get rather nasty. You see the green grass there, that's what makes it very slippy. And still when you get the turns in the corners, there can be potholes to trap down Wherry, but he's right in the centre now, switching across then, looking for a smoother part of the course, and riding here. The speed has been, the average was 38 kilometres an hour the last time check we had, so it's been a bit slower than in previous years. But there, with those green tyres on his bikes, those are the particular Vittoria type tyres, which are made specially for these sort of conditions. Some are slightly fatter than they would normally have. And keep your fingers crossed that he doesn't puncture, because with a 1 minute gap, or just a 1 minute gap, you can lose that straight away if you have a problem. But the team cars come up to now to keep an eye on him, and it's Ballerini on his way. Look at the size of those legs, they really are tree trunk jobs.
Of course, when you're out on your own, out on your own in the front, you've got the motivational factor. You've got everyone screaming at you because you're the first ride on the road. You've got the lead car with horns going, and all this helps you.
Well, the Italians have come good in this race over the years. The chase group now coming up behind them. Looking back down the list, the great man Francesco Moser was 3 times he won this race, 78, 79 and 80. There are very few riders that have been able to do the double, let alone the triple, but Francesco Moser it was who did that. The gap then 1 minute and 42 seconds. It was 1:27. It is growing now as the time goes by. And my thoughts go out to the first Italian to win this race, which was Rossi in 1937, and then the next one after that was a joint decision between Mahe and Serse Coppi. I remember correctly, they sent the brother Coppi off the wrong way. Mahe was given the race, and they gave it to Serse Coppi as well as a joint victor, because they directed him the wrong way to finish. But his brother made amends in 1950. Just you think that in those days, people like Fausto Coppi, that would ride the big tours and win them, would also ride in this Paris Roubaix. So Italians started way back with that victory in 37 of Rossi, Fausto Coppi and Serse Coppi 49 in 1950, and then Bevelica in 1951. They didn't do so much after that until we got round about the era of Francesco Moser. Gimondi also managed to win it in 1966, but in recent years the Italians have come here in some strength. It's a Mappe team mainly which seem to be concentrating. They're not only good at the tours, but they're also able to produce such epic riders for the classics. But of course they've got a team of some 22 men, and enables them to have one team for the classics, one team for the big tours, another team for the second-rate races, coming on future talent for the sport in the future. At the moment, it doesn't look to me though as if anybody on this little group's driving it hard, is it? It's spasmodic, I think.
Well, you know, like I said, that guys like Moncassin and Sanson, they're not really noted to push on so much, and they want to rely on their teammates, but their teammates are also very tired, and they can't really match the strength of Ballerini, so consequently they're losing time all the time.
Well, last year we had what would almost, with apologies, say a virtual unknown win the race when Gaydon won the race at La France de Joux. He popped out of a pack of about 5 or 6 riders to win the sprint. Nobody was taking much notice of him on the way into the finish in Roubaix. But there's no doubt about it, the man who's out in the lead, the Ballerini, has a tremendous palmarès, they say. He's got a tremendous list of success in the Paris-Roubaix over the season, and this group behind him know that they've got to chase down a very strong man indeed. I don't know if they've given up, Sean, but they don't seem to be firing, do they? So it looks like he could well and truly ride on now into finish and ride those last, 50 kilometres on his own. Tremendous performance. There we are, we've just got 6 zones left of the pavé. That's the distance at about 5 miles of bouncing over the rocks, and those are the place where you can get a puncture, those are the place you can fall down. But look at the speed on the clock now. He's doing the 50 kilometres an hour. That's about 30 miles an hour. This is advantage he's getting of this particular part of the course with the following wind, but he will turn and come into the wind. Another group I just come off on headphones 3 minutes back included Bortolami, so he's out of the race chance of getting a victory now in this particular occasion, so he's not going to find his name back up there on the list of successes. Just 1 minute and 20 seconds separates Ballerini as we go to yet another break. You're looking at the chasing group who are the last time check 1 minute and 20 seconds, no, so 1:49 down behind Ballerini out in the lead. And just going on to the front now, the Rabobank riders. There are 2 of them in this group, Van Bon and Sorensen. There are 2 from the GAN team Backstead and Moncassin. There are two from Mappe who are doing nothing, Taffy and Peters, to aid this one, as you'd expect with their teammate down the road. And they're the bluish coloured chaps just behind. And then Gouverneau and one other rider, I think it was the Italian, Riche, who was still in that little group behind them, not being able to contribute because they've been away in the early break. So really, it's going to be Van Bon and Sorensen, Moncassin and Backstead versus Ballerini, who's flying across this canoe. The other people make it look so difficult, haven't they? And he's just going straight across.
I mean, he's not in the lead for nothing, you know. He's one of the best riders, and he does make it look easy.
I always remember when I used to ride cyclocross with a chap called John Atkins, who was national champion more times than Soft Mick. And Soft Mick didn't ride cyclocross, but he was more champion than Soft Mick. And you'd ride behind John, and he was just coasting over the conditions, and you'd be struggling. How the hell does he manage? Some people just drift, can't they? We just saw Ballerini. That was a complete example of a fellow doing it in a way that, you know, you just can't replicate, can you?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think you've either got it, you haven't. And obviously, when you've got it, it makes things really easy for you. You can concentrate on a job in hand, which is going as fast as possible.
Well, Moncassin here with the GAN companion Backstead left-hand side, taking something to eat now. And they know what they've got to do, they know what the time gaps are, and of course again they know these road conditions. And look at the state of them coming through there. You can see that the number of the riders that have come off in this race are showing the signs, those crashes, which have disrupted their activities, no doubt about it. Look at the motor cars so covered in mud, and when they're going to get to the finish today, they'll be likely exchanging notes and checking out where they came off, where they punctured, what went wrong on the day, and the stories they must be able to tell, I'm sure, a legion when they go back in the team cars back to the hotels tonight and then get themselves ready for the next of the race on the season. But don't forget, we're going to be back on air again for the Flèche Wallonne this coming Wednesday and the Les Baston-Liège. But it's not normal that many of the riders do both the Paris Roubaix and the Flèche Wallonne or the Les Baston-Liège. It's sort of slightly different riders, aren't they?
It is. It's, you know, the Flèche and Liège are much more suited to the climate type, and a lot of those guys who run those races have been down in the Pays Basque preparing for them. And a lot of these riders who are running today, they'll have a decent-sized break after this event, and it'll be the finish of the first part of their season, like I was just saying for Ballerini. So, you know, a lot of them are really going to give it their all today, because they know that after today they've got a break, and then they'll prepare for the next bit of the season.
Well, the Arenberg Forest caused the damage today. I'm sorry we didn't see it all on air. We were actually watching from our commentary point the pictures of it this day. Look at that, 2:28. It's grown from 1:59, so he's going away right now. Oh, sorry, that's the second group. So I think the die is cast now, and the damage was done back in the Arenberg Forest, and that was first used in 1968. So it's the 30th anniversary of the Arenberg Forest. That was the year 1968 when Eddie Merckx won the race, and this year we've seen it really set a particular pattern, because Museo crashed into Peters, never really got his act together after that one, although I'm pretty sure he probably had even more problems along the way. We're looking down at his teammate here, Ballerini. So even though Museo didn't get the success that he was hoping for today, he was one that had troubles in Arenberg Forest, and it really was, to look at that about 10 or 15 minutes of picture we saw, an amazing sight of the riders just falling off, crashing into the spectators, going behind the spectators, and that set the scene to disrupt this race. But those who survived got back together again now and have come up here. So the 8 men, including Dirksen, Dirksen now is at 1:53. He's dropped back now. So there we are. Those little group of Moncassin now, minus Dirksen. The lead then 2:28 at the moment. Here he is. To think that this morning we started out at what was it, 10:25 was it proper going to be the start. In reality we started about 10:15. It neutralised to begin with, and here we are then coming up towards 4:30, and he's still racing along here and taking in the kilometres. Of course, I suppose when you scent victory, you're beginning to get some more strength in your legs.
You certainly do. Harking back to what I said before, you know, it gives you extra motivation being out there on your own in the front. You've got all the spectators screaming at you, so they know you're leading the race. You've got the lead cars, and as we can see here, the team car encouraging you, so you know you're really going to go for it.
He's getting the difficult point, though. I said about the following wind. He's come up along the 8th, 7th, 6th and 5th sector of the race with the following wind. As he's curving round now, section 4, he actually will go straight into the wind, and 3 and then 2. So between now and the finish, the final section of the race, his last 20 kilometres, he's going to start riding into the wind, and that will be the true test.
You can see that when the wind is obviously coming from the left there, because when he gets handed up a bottle, the car comes up on the left-hand side and pushing right in front of him to protect him from the wind and give him that little bit extra help. So they'll probably be coming up quite a lot in the next few sections.
So there he is then, still pressing on to the finish, coming up towards about 20 kilometres to go. Good look at close-up of those handlebars. Have been battering up across the pavé, coming up then towards about the 5th section of the race to go. He's got around about, correction, 30 kilometres to go towards the finish of the race. So after zone 5, he starts to move into that nasty headwind, and he's powering away here. He's rocking slightly, but I think that's the power that's going down. Look at the size of those thighs. Gosh, makes your eyes water.
Yeah, that is his style. He's not particularly aerodynamic, as you can see, but that doesn't seem to be slowing him down. He's got this very rigid arm style, which is, you know, that's just his style, and as I said, it's not really slowing him down much.
Well, let's hope he survives this one, because everybody's got stories to tell. In fact, Jean-Marie Leblanc, we talked about him quite often, the director of the Tour de France, who I mentioned had been over to Ireland and gave us the good news that the race will go through Sean Kelly Square when the Tour is in Ireland. He actually finished 34th in this race in 1971 when he was away with an Italian and Roger Pignon. And they got 4 minutes lead at Solnez when he had the misfortune to puncture, and then he got back into the back end of the peloton and broke his bike as well. So that was him finished on that occasion. So Jean-Marie Leblanc, one of the chief operators on the Tour de France, the director of the Tour de France, who's here on this race too, knows what it's like to suffer in this race, and one of those that has a story to tell about what happened to him when he first punctured and then broke his bike as well. So many people can exchange stories later in life about what happened to them, and we're looking at the survivors of this great race now, the 25 teams that set off in the race with around about 8 riders each. So looking at the thick end of 200 riders, and we've only got a handful, probably less than 10. One down the road, we've got about 8 here, and another group about 30 seconds back. So it really has been a war of attrition. And I remember last year the Spanish 14 started, only 1 finished. So perhaps none will finish this year. It's a bit awful, hasn't it? You're right about this keeping on the left when the wind's coming from the left-hand side. We must go up and give instructions to our team man.
28 kilometres to go for Bannerman.
Yeah, so it's Sisson. He's coming up to zone 5, and shortly after that, the wind will become even more of a problem. Inside the last 28 kilometres for Ballerini, and he'll be finding it a little bit tougher in about 3 or 4 kilometres when he turns in towards the wind. And I'm sorry, I'm busy, I can't answer the phone now. Probably passing the good news out to Dr. Squingy of the Mappe team. You remember that story when they all 3 came in together? It was whether they'd actually taken directions from the boss of the company as to who should win on that. Nobody actually got to the truth of it, but it was suggested a radio telephone message was made and the doctor denied it and everything else. But there's no doubt this time he's trying to Italy say, no team tactics, I've got 1 man away, 27 kilometres to go, gap of thick end of 2 minutes, and Ballerini is going like a train, so that man will be probably getting the champagne on the ice. Here they are, these are chasers. The last 2 blokes see at the back here, by the way, at the moment. Number 118 there, that's the rider from the Psycho team, Michael Rich. He with that early break, as was Tilly Gouveneau just up in front of him, and they have survived. They're doing the right thing sitting on the back, and they haven't got the strength left in anyway to aid the chase down for our leader, but still working away the 2 Gann riders, Moncassin and Backstead.
And they're just catching up Diddickson here.
Yes, he got shot out, didn't he, from his time. That's a great ride when you think about it. We've got, what, 25 kilometres maybe to go to finish, and they went away after, well, with 161 kilometres to go to the finish. So he must have done now about 140 kilometres perhaps, hasn't he, out in the lead.
Yeah,
Tremendous ride.
He's done a great ride today.
And the GAN riders getting some assistance from the Rabobank team. You can see Robbie McEwen there, who's been in quite good form so far this season, helping Sorensen. Robbie's come off his bike. You can see where the mud that was all over him. And he's helping and doing what he can at the moment. So he's finally been caught then. Oh, it's Van Bond, my mistake, yes, Van Bond. And the gap, 3 minutes and 2 seconds.
Like I said, I think I can only see it climbing from now on.
Not missing a beat. This then the 5th of the zones coming through here with 25 kilometres to go. There's 1,000 metres of the pavé here for him to go over. The final section of pavé, something like 400 metres. And keep your fingers crossed he stays upright. Just look at this crowd, and these people have come out here on what is a winter's day. It's really a disgusting day. It's been hailing, it's been raining, the wind, a very cold biting wind has been coming across on the spectators. Many of them well equipped for the day with anoraks on, but if you stand around for long enough, because this is such a flat part of northern France, you can see the flag there flying for the Italians, and the wind then, you can see the way it was coming as it's holding it out. It's coming from left to right now at the moment, and it's been a bitingly cold wind. You see other people have got the umbrellas behind them. That's to stop this cold wind cutting through, and that's the difficult conditions he's got ahead of him now. It's the wind that can make life difficult, but the gap's gone to 3 minutes, and so there's every chance at this rate he can hang on to that victory. There, look at the flags flying, but this time, of course, it's not going to be the Lion of Flanders that you just saw flying there for Johan Museeuw. He's not in contention following that crash in the Arenberg forest, and yet here this is the rough stuff for him yet to go through, but he has time to puncture and get a wheel and still stay ahead of the main group, because the gap then over 3 minutes the last time check we got. Bortolami is in a group some 45 seconds behind the second group, so he might get them coming together. Now we've got about 6 riders there. We've got 10 at 16. Will that help the chase, you think, or would it like to slow it down?
I don't think it can slow it down that much. You know, it depends on whether they want to cooperate. Like I said, they got Taffy and Wilfried Peters sitting on, so all the time they're going to get a free ride, and they may be discouraged with the fact that Ballerini's got a 3-minute lead. If he was only 30 seconds up the road, then that'd make a difference. But 3 minutes, they may think that's it, and they'll be trying to settle for second place.
At least the Maffes will be even more outnumbered, but it depends how stuffed the chasers are, having come up from so far behind.
And that's it. With this slight headwind, it's also easier, you know, for the guys from Maffes to follow. So I think they're up against it, to be honest.
Well, in the Bortolami's group, there's O'Grady and Vogels of GAN, so that'll add some help. Capella is in there too, Van Petegem, Layson and Conte, so there's some quite good talent in there. Although Layson, of course, riding with the Mappe team will also maybe help to try and slow things down. But if they've got anything left, then that's one last chance, isn't it, for them to go?
Yeah, they have to fully commit themselves there.
So he ain't over yet. Not until the fat lady sings. I can't see what the finish here. All I can feel is a biting cold wind coming across here. And we're watching then Ballerini in full flight over this very treacherous road, because you can see there's been some rain recently just on this part of the course. Some of the cobbles further back have been drier, but these are nasty ones. But he's dead straight, isn't he?
He is. He's got a clear road in front of him. He's very focused, and you know, he's picking the right line.
Does the distance and the pavé have any extra tiring effect than, say, riding on the normal roads, and therefore you'll control the bike? As you get tired, is it more difficult, or are you just a sheer enthusiasm going to keep it? He was so straight then, wasn't he?
I think, you know, like I said before, he's not in the front for nothing. He's feeling very strong today. He's focused on this race. He's done well in the past. He knows all these sections, so it's not a problem for him. He's just going for it. I mean, the guys behind, maybe who are 10-15 minutes behind, they're obviously very tired and they're going to be wobbling all over the place, and there's probably going to be a few crashes.
So he's inside the final 25 kilometres. He's our leader, Ballerini, at the moment. This is the chase group that's being led by the two Roubaix riders, Van Bon and Sorensen. The fellow without the hat on there, the dark-haired style, that's Moncassin, and just behind him is Baxter, has been doing a great job today. Many of them bearing the signs of the crashes that they have encountered on the way through. The gap then 3 minutes and 2 seconds back to these chasers here. Another group then at 3 minutes and 47 seconds might be catching up with this man Bortolami. So we had more than our fair share of crashes today. In fact, we had a crash yesterday coming here, and it wasn't my fault before you start writing the cycling. There's a chap coming the other way in his car. Somebody came out a side road, and we were in Compiègne. We've just been down, haven't we, Sean, to try and get ourselves our accreditation. We'd gone to the wrong place. They moved it. They didn't tell us. We're going down this great wide road very slowly, because we just come out of this place where they used to hold the accreditation signing-ons, and just drifting along and coming the other way. This chap was going like stink. The fellow came out the side turn. He completely lost his car, the fellow coming the other way. Spun through 360 degrees, and we watched him, didn't we? We were actually stopped by the time he hit us. I grabbed the brakes. We sat there and thought, will he hit us? Will he? Oh, bang! Right up the front of the car. And the damn trouble was he got a tow bar on the back, and it completely wiped out one of the fog lights and bent the front bumper. Didn't do much damage to his car, except en route to hitting us, he'd bounced off the pavement and buckled his back wheel. It was a front-wheel drive car, so he was able to drive off with his back wheel wobbling all over the place, and we discovered in exchanging notes it was his brother's car. I don't think he got a good reception when he got home. Well, that was no more damage than that, a bit of a bump, and but not as many problems some of the bike riders had today. Ballerini on his way through. Just looking like he's been out for a Sunday stroll on this Easter Sunday, but he has been riding right the way throughout without missing a beat, and these chasers are well over 3 minutes down now. He's inside the final 23 or 24 kilometres at the moment. He went away at 224 kilometres of the race. He caught up with Dirksen. That was at 3 hours and 7 minutes it was when he went away. So he's got 266 kilometres in all to do. So when he went away at 224, that meant he's got some 42 kilometres to do out there on his own at the front, over 25 miles. Not quite as far as Chamil went, but an equally impressive display.
A very impressive display. I don't think the chasing group is as strong as when Chamil was away, but you know, he's doing a fantastic ride, and all credit to him.
Well, if you've just tuned on to Eurosport, I'm David Duffield, and I'm enjoying yet again this Paris Roubaix. It's one of the great races I just find that I've got an affinity to, and can feel for these bike rides. I'm sure you can do back at home. My co-commentator here is Sean Yates, who finished 5th in the race in 1994, 11th in 1995. He finished 5 times in all, and he's joined me in the commentary box. He came with me here last year. And what I like also when we're going round is the way the people welcome Sean, seeing him back here now working on the television side after being such a great competitor in this epic race as such. And I know that Sean being here, it's a pain and suffering you wouldn't like to do, but somehow it wouldn't be bad to get out there again, would it?
Yeah, I mean, I miss it to a certain degree, but I've done my time, I feel, and it's great to be back here and have a nice outside view, but at the same time be able to, you know, say hello to all the guys. And
well, it's 3 minutes 25 seconds you can see on the screen there, so we've just got a bit of freedom at the moment. Sean, tell the people back at home what you're up to now.
At the moment, I'm still riding my bike. I'm doing a few time trials. I'm working pretty much full-time, doing some gardening in local houses, and you know, just trying to get on with life really. I'm not sure what I'm going to do in the future. I'm actually at the moment trying to sell my house, and I'm thinking of moving to France and maybe trying something different. So I'm not really that settled down, but at the same time enjoying life.
Good. Well, just news coming up on our headphones then. 3:25 to chase, 4 minutes 30 seconds to Bortolami. You're still able to fit in your gardening, all this hard work with your training for time trialing. How much training are you doing then?
Not so much. I've been lucky that I've been out to Mallorca for 4 weeks, helping out with Ideal Travel training camps, so that I can get some decent miles in. But most of my training is done in the evening indoors on a turbo trainer. As I'm only running, 25-mile time trials. You don't have to do so much training, so it's just a lot of quality work, and I seem to be getting some decent results.
And what about this near veteran team that you're riding with? Come on, who else is involved?
I mean, just some old racing colleagues. We've got Tim Stevens, Dave Acom, Richard Preble. We've got together, and we're going to aim to get a few team medals and win the team time trial championships, hopefully, and just enjoy ourselves.
Well, from the results I've seen in cycling, you're enjoying yourself also means batting other people into the ground because you're beating them out of sight from time to time. And it's a pity we haven't got cameras here for you to show Sean to you, ladies and gentlemen, back at home. He's had one of those strappings across his nose, and probably he got a bit too suntan when he's out in New York because he took this strapping off and it's ripped his nose. He's got a nice red stripe across there, and people going up saying, "Hello, Sean, you've been in a fight." his nose has been a very great talking point with the people here in the last 24 hours or so. Anyway, let's hope it heals up before long.
Yeah.
Right, back with Ballerini from the MAPE team, and I was going to say sticking at it, of course, he rides for the company that make chemical adhesives and what have you. MAPE have not had really, I think, the start of the season which they would normally so dominant. They've done well with Mouzeau taking the Tour of Flanders. They got the Messagelia taking the Tour of Langkawi, and they had Taffy in the yellow jersey right the way through. But the most strongest team we've had so far in the season has been the Casino team, has scored some 24 victories. He's only got about 4 sections of pavé yet ahead of him. But so MAPE are going to really revel in this one to add to the list of successes they've had so far. I'll just double check the numbers because some people like to know exactly who's done what over the years. So if you just hang on a minute, I'll just dig out here a little piece of paper that's been given to me, and we can say that MAPE this year have so far as a team have had 19 victories. The one this as at yesterday, by the way, 19 victories. This will be their 20th victory for their team. Casino have had 24 victories so far this year. The most victorious rider in the pro scene at the moment was Marshall Wust, who I spoke to this morning, had 8 victories. Tom Steels, who's had the misfortune to fall off at least twice, we've seen him fall off. For MAPE has had 7 victories so far this season. Eric Sabel and Jan Kursapu of the Telecom and the Casino teams have got 6 each, and Bartoli of the ASICS team have got 5. So we're now seeing some success here. Mouzeau, by the way, has had 3 victories so far this season, and this for Ballerini will take him up there. Well, it's a double victory, but he only had 1 so far, hasn't he? So nevertheless, from MAPE's point of view, it'll put him up in 20 victories, and they'll be looking forward to overtaking Casino at some point in the future. Casino also had 19 victories so far this season, and Once have had 9. So those are the top teams. We haven't seen Once, of course, in this race. You're watching Eurosport's coverage of the Tour of the Basque Country. Once dominated that one because they're much more a team that likes the whoops, steady boys, steady, steady, steady. Oof. Now, is that going to aid or hinder the chasers when they come to that corner?
I think that's going to hinder, and I wouldn't be surprised I saw a couple of them fall down.
I was going to say, certainly he's lost a bit of time there. He was very, very careful, wasn't he?
But he can afford to be. I mean, he's got a decent lead, and he doesn't want to come down now and blow his chances.
Well, MAPE, such a dominant, they are the #1 team in the world, and they've got a good mixture of riders that can ride the tours and ride the single-day race as well. And Ballerini giving us a tremendous lesson in riding under these awful conditions, some of the worst we've seen for a long, long time now. The intriguing thing too, looking at his bicycle here, except the fact it's probably longer in the wheelbase and more clearance like we saw with the Rabobanks yesterday, is the lack of novelty this morning in the starts. We know that there were 35 riders on Ruby RockShox forks. We know that the Cannondale riders are on their headshocks front systems, which are, I won't say the headshock is more commonplace, but it's on a lot of mountain bikes now. But one thing I missed this morning, Sean, was those weird and wonderful bikes that happened recently where they had rear suspension, because you go around and see everybody concocting new rear suspensions, and one particular well-known manufacturer made some rear suspensions, and they all broke on the way into Roubaix because you can't test them like the conditions they've got here. And last year the US Postal team tried to start with 2 bicycles that had got what I call the Y-frame rear suspension, which they use in mountain biking, and they were banned because they hadn't had the approval of the UCI officials. But we've got more of this diamond frames now because this is the way the sport is going in the future. I think it's a retrograde thing not to allow them to have front and rear suspension if it's being used in mountain biking, but the rules are being changed. Or do you agree with this? Let's have them all on similar machines.
I mean, it's good to have different frame designs. It has interest, but I think, like I was saying before, the last 4 years the race has been won on bikes with no suspension. So, you know, people are saying you don't need suspension to win this race. Why bother all the trouble of you know, setting up the rock shop, setting up dual suspension, when guys like Musa and Ballerini can win it without it? So, you know, I think they're just tending not to bother.
Well, so perhaps the UCI and Hein Verbruggen has got a particular point in saying let's get this thing pretty well together. The gap was now some 3 minutes and 37 seconds, and the gap then is growing, not coming down on the way in towards the finish. I don't know whether you saw in cycling a week ago, there was this little off the back bit where it talked about the UCI banning bikes, and you all had to have the same bikes, back to 7-speed gears, shifters on the down tube, and many other of it. You could have your own shoes and your own saddle. I read this one through, and then I realised that the UCI were bringing the rule in at the midnight on March the 31st. And I realised the spoof for April the 1st joke. Did you catch up with that spoof too?
I didn't really read that article very closely. I noticed it when I was whipping through the magazine, and later when I tried to find it, but I didn't, and it wasn't until the week after I looked in the magazine and they said it was an April Fool's.
I just wonder how many people were actually taken in by it.
Well, I heard there's a few, because I heard there's a few phone calls to the cycling office.
No.
I believe so.
Well, this is the man here. You're watching Ballerini on his, which I say conventional it is now. We'll have to get a close-up, because Colnago has two sorts of bikes in the race here. He has the aluminium version frames, and he also has the carbon fibre ones. I'm not quite sure what Ballerini is on at the moment. Well, and he has also some steel ones, so it's a bit difficult to say, but it's obviously in a very traditional shape at the moment. And Ballerini riding through. He's like a man possessed, isn't he? He's going along here, and nothing's bothering him. Nothing is bothering him.
This is the last really bad section of Pavé. That's his bike. I think it's just on the carbon C40, which he normally rides, which may have a bit of flex in it, but you know, he won it on the same bike previously, so he knows that this is a good bike for the job, and he certainly is motoring along here, just getting to the end of this last really bad section.
If you're watching Eurosport's coverage live of the Paris Roubaix on this Easter Sunday, you're watching a man come through what is going to amount, by the time he finishes, 50 kilometres of the pavé. The crowd here roaring on Ballerini, who has gone away. He's tried to do the whole of the last 40-odd kilometres on his own to take victory here, a victory that he's had in the past, and he's just flying over these terrible cobble conditions. And you go, look at his balancing factor, with his body moving round, and the control of those handlebars to make sure that front wheel doesn't flick from underneath him. And once he clears this lot then, and his gap is now well over 3 minutes, he should be home and dry, or should I say home and muddy, and I wonder who's going to clean his clothes. He didn't let you go back to mum and say, oh, you've been out playing your bike in the dirty mud again, have you? No, Ballerini's on his way to take £15,000 worth of prize money for an epic ride. And that the Paris Roubaix, which dates back to 1896, this being the 96th version of the race, has had so many stories. Each and every one of these races has deep stories within it, and certainly if you can buy the books which tell the stories or get the tapes, it's one race which I think you can absorb and see stories of the problems they've had to people, and the courage which they show, like he has shown, to go for the finish from a long way out and just ride the rest off your wheel. The team tactics don't always come into it quite the same way as they do in other races. It's one man on a machine against the rest of the riders, and of the 25 teams and 8 riders, nearly 200 men that start out, one man is surviving, and he's 3 minutes ahead of the chasing group of something like about 8 riders who are still riding very hard indeed. In fact, it's up to 10 now in that chasing group, but they can't catch him. 9, my mistake. I didn't get the signals right. Brilliant, isn't it, eh?
Brilliant.
You're really enjoying this, aren't you?
And the crowd are really enjoying it as well. They're really, you know, egging him on here.
7 men chasing. So they're dropping one by one out there. And probably Tom Stills. Let's hope he makes that chasing group, because he's had 2 horrific crashes that we've seen. We can tell you some of the things we hear on our headphones coming up from the race radio about crashes and punctures, but often the number aren't always reported, because when the field is spread out like it is over such a great distance, they're all having their own little private problems further on down. We've certainly seen Tom Stills come down a couple of times. We saw Mazeo crash coming out of the Allenberg Forest when he bumped into his teammate Wilfried Peters. He never really got back. Chamil had punctured, and he had problems too trying to get back as well. Look at the state of these roads, and he just coast around that one, which really was, you know, almost like a big pond with a crocodile ready to bite your leg. And he went round it, and he's now got a rate of 3 minutes and 59 seconds, and he's flying into the finish, despite the fact this is where the wind is blowing across the left-hand side. Cold, searing wind, which has brought the rain, brought the hail, and brought the terrible conditions you see here today. He's just riding on as if it doesn't exist. 3 minutes and 59 seconds is the gap back to chase. Nearly 4 minutes.
Yeah, like I said, when he first went away and he started getting the momentum going, I could only see his lead going up. The chasers weren't really that keen on chasing him down, you know, unless he blows up. I can see the lead being 6-7 minutes at the finish.
Well, he's going across this road which we've had on Eurosport in the last 4 years. It's been dry conditions, and there you can see Peters, Taffy, that's his teammates, with Sorensen, Van Bonn and Van Kassen, Baxter and Rich are still the chase. They're up on your screen now at the moment, but they're really riding in for what looks like a second place from this lot. But the Rabobank look like they're being slightly distanced at the moment. Baxter there is the Rabobank sandwich. Van Bonn and Sorensen are just off the back, and presumably now the Mappe know that they can't really catch back 3 minutes, and they're trying to outdistance the rest and get 1, 2 and 3 again.
That's it. I think that's what they're going to
So
try.
poor old Fred's got to hang on to this one. The train's are getting up more steam, and it's Mappe trying to go 1, 2 and 3. So the only man that can stop them doing 1, 2 and 3 is Moncassin, and he's hanging on for grim death now. The Rabobanks have been distanced, Baxter's been tracing, and he's stuck in the middle of that Rabobank sandwich, and he can do nothing to help. Well, they were first, second and third in 1996 when Museo, Bortolami and Taffy came in almost shoulder to shoulder, but right now they're spread even further apart, and the Mappes are ripping Fred to pieces.
I think they'll have to get rid of him if they want to get 1, 2 and 3, because it's a very fast finisher, and he's not going to let a podium place slip away from him. But you can see he's really struggling here, and if these two get away from him, they're not going to wait for him.
They've done it.
Sure. They've done it. He's cracked. He's cracked.
Anyway!
And it looks like Peters who's making Taffy suffer here. They're coming to near the end of this section, and yeah, Moncassin is
blown.
He's blown. He's lost it.
Oh.
And
what a race! Every minute of this race, something's been happening, and the two riders from Mappe, they had the advantage of sitting in that chase when Ballerini went away with over 40 kilometres to go to the finish, about 42 I think it was. When he went away, at the kilometre 224 of this 266 kilometres, so he set himself 42 kilometres to go, and he went away at Central European time at 7 minutes past 3 in the afternoon. We now came up towards 5 o'clock, so he's been away for nearly 2 hours or so. These two chaps just hung on in the chasing group, and once they knew that the gap was over 7 minutes then, over 3 minutes, they've now gone away, left the rest of the field, and Rathie are going for 1, 2 and 3. What a race.
They got first and second in Flanders, first and the third in what was it called? The race we had midweek. Gent-Wevelgem. So, and they're going to try and get the first 3 here, so they really are a dominant force in these early classics.
Well, they've shown superb form all the way through the season when they've ridden completely strong. They blew it a bit though in Milan-San Remo, didn't they?
They blew it in Milan-San Remo. They had a great pair in Nice. Won a few stages. Van der Broek won the overalls. I mean, they're definitely having a better season than last year so far. Yep,
and there in the top left-hand corner of your screen is Ballerini riding in, trying to, over 40-odd kilometres on his own at the front of this race now. And amongst the ploughed fields, we could see 2 other riders chasing after him. his teammates Peters and Taffy looking to make it 1, 2 and 3. Well, we saw those pavés. They're not going to be any bad in future, and I had a nice little card sent to me over Christmas from the Vernon family with the bear bumping and bouncing of the infamous Enfer the North, the Wallens-Annenberg. The little bear is bouncing up and down saying, phew, I'm all for traffic calming system, but this is ridiculous. Well, the race, I think this time the Wallenberg Forest really got ripped to pieces. And these two riders still batching along here at the moment, and they wrote me this card. In fact, it wasn't a Christmas card. It said, the sky is blue, the sun is shining, blackbirds are building nests, teas are budding, and the rabbits are jumping about like a 5-man breakaway who've just seen 1 kilometre go. Thank heaven for spring. Well, this isn't a very nice spring weather this year, because that came the letter through last year with this picture of the bear bouncing over the cobbles in the Wallens-Annenberg Forest. And these riders now on these last big cobbles going through here will know they've been in a hell of a race by the time they go through. But Mappé 1, 2 and 3 it looks at the moment. This is some achievement, and the people were very critical, weren't they, Sean, of the way they had the 1, 2 and 3 the last time. They rode in and then they allowed Museo to take the victory, and they said things rather like Hakkinen and Coulthard in Formula 1. But that team is so strong. If they choose to do it this way or that way, they can do it. They've done it, and who's going to say they're doing the wrong thing, eh?
That's it. I mean, they had the first 3 that year, and they could have easily had the first 4 if Ballerini didn't have so many punches. So it could have been even more ridiculous.
Yep. Well, the Italian strength, I mean, we're talking about a mixture of Italians and Belgians in this Mappé team, but the Italians have always produced a tremendous amount of top riders in recent years, and they got a victory this year, same in the face. Ballerini it is, with those big powerful legs pounding away on this bike. He's through the worst part of the race now, and it's almost going to be a ceremonial lap of honour in front of the crowd at the finish at Roubaix, where they've been waiting with bated breath. They can see an enormous screen here. We're sitting up in a commentary point which is in the grandstands. It's what I call a concrete fridge. It's made of concrete. It's been freezing cold. We're sitting with the wind coming straight at us and freezing us to death here, but we've been very warm by the race here as Peters and Taffy then trying to make it 1, 2 and 3 for the Mappé team have now outdistanced Moncassin, Backstead, Van Bon and Sorensen. You see them down there, those 4 I just mentioned, who are now riding in just the 4th spot. Inside the final 10 kilometres to go for our leader, and those riders behind tried so hard, they just couldn't do anything about the strength of the Mappé squad. And so even though Museo, their star man, who was tipped to be the man to win this race, crashed coming out of the Allenberg Forest and never regained contention, they're certainly going to be happy with this 1, 2. And just think about it, Sean, what would happen if Museo survived that crash?
Yeah, it would have been
1, 2, 3 and 4.
That's it, like the other year. But that's the thing with Paris Roubaix, you can never forecast 100% what's going to happen, and there's always 1 or 2 people, 1 or 2 of the favourites who end up with some bad luck, and that puts them out of the race. But luckily a team like, lucky for them, Mappé have got so many strong riders that even if 1 or 2 of them have bad luck, as Museo and Zanini did, they still have the first 3 places. It just shows how strong they are.
And here's the strength being shown to in absolute depth. Peters going through, and then Taffy behind him. British viewers, of course, remember Taffy winning that race down at Rochester Classic. And when I was out in better weather conditions than this, when out in the Tour of Malaysia, when temperatures were between 30 and 40 degrees out in that wonderful countryside, then in that race, the Tour of Langkawi, Taffy took the race leader's jersey. It's obviously put him in good form. He dropped it 2 days to go when his teammate Misagila took it over, and Figueres won that particular stage. But Mappé was showing their strength out in Malaysia. That was in February, and here in the bitter cold conditions of the Paris Roubaix, complete contrast to the sunshine out in Malaysia, the damp conditions of northern France, they're still showing their dominance and their strength. And the Italians then coming on in to win this one. That'll give them their 10th victory in the Paris Roubaix, but the Belgians still are the best. They've had 47 victories in this race, French 29, now the Italians going to double figures with 10 victories. And in the breakaways, Arnaud Chamil broke away for 62 kilometres to win in 1994. Fausto Coppi did 45 kilometres on his own to win in 1950. Eddie Merckx did 44 kilometres in 1973, and Gimondi 41 kilometres in 1966. So Ballerini is moving into that top echelon of people who are prepared to have a go a long way from home.
It looks like he's battling against a bit of a headwind here.
That's what we do, yes,
yeah,
on that
he's
course.
rocking a bit, but he's still going along at a fair rate of knots.
That was my fear, that if there'd only been a minute and a half, if that chasing group could have got close to him coming into the wind, if they'd all still be together. Because here we go onto this section 2 of the pavé, and this particular one, 1,400 metres, and up towards Hem. 8 kilometres to go towards the finish. The final section, by the way, in what they call the Espace Croupelant, is only 300 metres, and it's been specially laid outside the track in Roubaix. There was a central area where I should suggest, looking at it, that they must have had trams going along it many years ago, and then they paved it, or they covered it over with tarmac for people to park cars on. And now what they've done is the last 300 metres in towards the stadium, they've relayed a special set of cobbles, and it's dead smooth. It's nothing like we've seen so far. Nice new set of cobbles. So this one he's going through now isn't bad, but the last one he'll hit is a smooth one, just to sort of set the final scene running into Roubaix. And there we are, just 7.6 kilometres to go. That's less than 5 miles for Ballerini to run into the finish in Roubaix to get another victory, making 10 for the Italians. So it's been worthwhile sitting here, I think, Sean, in these cold weather conditions, watching this race today. It's kept us certainly warmed up, and we've seen another race. One could say almost all the races there, because something happens all the time in this race, doesn't it? It's never predictable.
No, it's never predictable. This year I knew everyone knows that Arenberg Forest is bad, but this year it really did mess things up for a lot of riders and form the race. So you can never predict in this race.
There we are then. It's certainly been a race for the Italians today and the Belgians. We've got 2 Italians in this leading group, 1 Belgian, but not a Spaniard inside. Not being disrespectful, but it's horses for courses, and this race takes a certain sort of rider to ride it. And we're not just watching one now coming along here using all his skill and experience. He's just switched on to the bits of tarmac now, and that's one thing which we haven't had this year. In previous years, when the weather's been dry on either side of the pavé, where the road has been flattened and the earth has gone hard and it's been baked, then it's been possible to ride on the left-hand side around it. But this year, the left-hand side and right-hand side of the pavé sections were just mud bars and had to ride down the centre, and so many men fell off. Our thoughts go to people like Tom Steels, who crashed down twice when he was up there in the leading group. Other riders will have stories to tell afterwards, but for me, Sean, I think Tom Steels just really had a hatful of accidents today, didn't he? And he was riding so strongly.
He was riding very strongly, but he's had a couple of bad accidents recently, which is one of the reasons why his form hadn't been so good. He's obviously been sent up there today to keep things under control at the front, and he'd made a great job of it, but then obviously having 2 falls, it didn't help the cause, and he's dropped back a bit. But you know, he's paved the way for Ballerini and his other 2 teammates, so he did a great job.
The clock shows that now Ballerini has been out there on his own, alone, for 1 hour. That was a tremendous risk to take on this race, and he's riding in towards Roubaix with his teammates in 2nd and 3rd place at the moment. 1 hour he's done on his own. These 2 into the cold wind will be able to relay each other, and so they won't have the problem. Ballerini's had to fight his way into that cold wind. Inside now, the final 6 kilometres to go, and the big crowd waiting. Fortunately, the sun has come out here. The photographers are lined up in the finishing straight. There'll be no problems of close finishing like we had when Duke Lasalle came down here with Ballerini, and Ballerini was throwing his arms up in the air saying he'd won, but in fact Duke Lasalle just pipped him at the post, and Ballerini said he would never come back to ride in the Paris Roubaix yet again. That was way back in 1993. Well, there's no photo finish this time, the way that Ballerini is going on. We had another close finish as well when Steve Bauer and Eddie Plancard in 1990 were separated by 1 centimetre, but this isn't going to be difficult to count down when he comes into finish. Our lone leader, after 1 hour of racing on his own, nobody could catch him when he took off. He just powered his way through. He passed the riders in front of him like they were just glued into the pavé, and here his 2 teammates waited and waited until they knew that there was no way the chasers could catch him, and then they left Van Bon, they left Sorensen, they left Moncasson, they left Baxter, and they left behind them people like the Italian rider from the Psycho team, Michael Risch, who had done a tremendous ride. I was very impressed with the way he went today. I was very impressed also with the way that the Lotto rider, Dirksen, went today. We've seen a lot of new faces on the new kids on the block today, haven't we, Sean? So it isn't traditionally all the same riders we've seen, and it just shows if you've got the guts and determination, you can have a go at this race. And for Dirksen and Risch, I've not seen them ride this before. It's seldom you get what I call first-year riders doing as well as that, eh?
No, I mean they took their chance. They got in the early break. It suited the earlier breaks, what with the confusion that the Allenberg Forest caused, and it gave them a bit of leeway. The bunch gave them leeway, what with the headwind, you know, slowing things down, and they really made the most of it. And consequently, they've been able to hang on to the chasers, and they're going to get to finish in a reasonably good position. So they did a great ride, all those guys today.
Well, the early break went away just around about 100 kilometres had been covered of the race, of the total 266 kilometres of this, the 96 Paris Roubaix. And that early breakaway group, which originally some 21 riders, by the time they got to the 24th section, or coming up to the 24th section, having covered 112 kilometres of the race, they got a useful sort of lead. It began to grow. It's 2 minutes and 10 seconds. We're looking at Mancassin, Von Bon, Sorensen and Backstead here, who were not in that leading group. And as they went through the 24th section then of the race, that's the Paris section, or 24 to go, Steels went away with Dirksens and Ritz, and all those three names we just mentioned to you. So imagine that they went off there in that zone 24 with some 115 kilometres to go through to the finish, and they were out there and they've been in contention right the way through until about, what, 20 kilometres down the road. So they really, I think, those riders who we wouldn't normally see in a race like this surviving that length of time took advantage of the problems in the Allenberg Forest and gave us something very interesting in the early part of the race, which has completely blown apart the seams now. Ballerini looks like he's struggling here, and well he might, because the wind is getting at him now. And after the 1 hour on his own, when he charged away to begin with some 44 kilometres to go from the finish, and then once he caught up with Tom Stills and then Dirks, and then he drove away from them, that he's now got a lead of 4 minutes and 5 seconds from the chase. He's got 4 kilometres to go, and along the side of the road the people have been alerted, listening to it on their radios. They've heard the advance publicity cars going through, telling them about what's been going on with this man Ballerini then heading in with just 4 kilometres to go.
Yeah, he's on a bit of a drag here. Then it descends down into Roubaix, and it's flat to the finish. So, you know, he's almost home and dry. He's really digging in there. He's got a bit of a headwind, and it's hurting him, but he knows that it's not far away.
What's happened then, Sean, when you've been coming in here with even more riders who got that bit of a drag? Is this a place where there normally would be a bit of jumping around, or do you wait all the time for the finish in the track?
You're just trying to hang on. I remember in '94, Jamil was away. I was in a chasing group of 5 or 6, and we hit that drag, and I knew Ballerini was going to attack, and attack he did. Baldata went with him, and I couldn't, and those two went off and got second and third, and I was with Ludwig and Capio and Duclos to sprint out for the 4th place. But it's very tough, and you know, my legs were screaming out. I knew they were going to go, but I couldn't respond. So it's a very tough section. But from after that, it's down to the track, and like I said, Ballerini is home and dry.
When you said then that, you know, your legs were screaming and hurting, just how hurtful is this race compared with other races? What pain? Cycle racing is a hurtful and painful sport anyway. Just when you get out there, well, how does it compare with other races?
Well, I was really trying that day, and my legs were on the verge of cramping the whole time, so I didn't want to push too hard in case I did get cramped and lost the group completely, which has happened to me in the past. So, you know, it's just accumulation of fatigue, and you really are sort of digging deep into your reserves, and it takes you quite a long time to recover after the race is finished.
When you say it takes a long time to recover, is that an hour, 2 hours, or 2 days, or 2 weeks?
2 weeks, I think. Normally after Paris Roubaix, I would take a 2-week break, which is what I'm sure Ballerini and a lot of these guys are going to do, and to really recuperate from this, not only from this race, but from the first section of the season.
So there you are, people back at home, you're watching bike riders here who are prepared to put themselves through what is one of the toughest tests of bicycle racing that still exists on the calendar. Racing over roads that were out there in the 1890s when bicycle racing first started off. We've got new modern developments, new bikes, new styles, new clothing, new activity, new television to bring it to you. But you think about the great lions of the road that rode across the sort of terrain you've seen today live on Eurosport on this Easter Sunday for you, those you watching on this Sunday afternoon. And it's through that tradition of the cycle racing sport that encouraged people to take up this very, very hard sport and prepared to ride and ride and ride. And then, as Sean Yates was just saying, spent 2 weeks recovering from it. Yes, I've got it. Yes, again then. And watching Ballerini coming on here to finish will give him yet another success. He was there for the winner in 1995 and he's riding in now to put his name up there as another second. He had 2 fifths, he's had a second, and he's had a third as well. One of the most consistent of the, in fact, 2 seconds, 1/3, 2 fifths, and now on his way to his second victory as well. One of the most consistent riders of the modern era in the great Paris Roubaix, which dates back to 1896 when Joseph Fischer came in first place. Mayor of Denmark was second. Maurice Guérin of France, who went on to win the first of the Tour de France, the little chimney sweep they call him, was in 3rd spot. And Arthur Linton, the Welshman for Great Britain, was in 4th spot. And a lot of history since then, and these names that go on the roll call of honour are there forever in this tremendous race. He now turns into the last bit of the cobbles, and that's the last bit of cobbles, heading in then toward the finish of the race 1998.
He'll be feeling fantastic right now, Ballerini, knowing that he's almost there. He's hitting the Flamme Rouge, as they call it, the last kilometre.
The crowd have come out now on the sides of the road to applaud him through. He'll be swinging right and then right again into the stadium. They're all ready to welcome this grand champion who went away then with some 40-odd kilometres to go, and now he's on his way through 266.5 kilometres will have been covered. He's had 1 hour alone. He went away at 224 kilometres, so he's now done 42 kilometres on his own, and he has 2 laps of this track to do, or 1.5 to be more precise. As he comes round here, they've seen a tremendous performance, which has gone into one of those epics that we've had in the Tour, not in the Paris Roubaix. Not many people have gone away like this. It was Henri Chamil that set the record in 1994 when he had 62 kilometres on his own to take the victory. Fausto Cobbi did 45 kilometres in 1950, and Eddie Merckx 44 kilometres in 1973. And repeating that today, Ballerini riding round to the applause of this crowd who are enjoying a late burst of sunshine on what has been a very, very difficult day for bike racing and for spectating. It's been cold, it's been hailing, it's been raining, it's been windy, and now coming up then to something like 6 hours and 58 minutes of racing for the 266.5 kilometres of the 96th Paris Roubaix. On his own for his second victory comes the man from Mapei, the Italian Franco Ballerini, rides in to take the victory of the Enfer de North. The Hell of North goes to Ballerini, the Paris Roubaix for Mapei, for Italy. This, the 96th version, and that was a convincing victory, a convincing show of strength, and everybody is warming to that performance. They love to see somebody throw down the gauntlet. He did it. He spent 1 hour and 5 minutes on his own after he got rid of everybody else, and now he's enjoying every moment of the applause of this massive crowd at Roubaix.
Yeah, fantastic victory for Ballerini there. He obviously was one of the favourites with his past record and his recent form, and he came up with the goods today, and so did the whole of the Mapei team.
For a man who in 1993, when he was throwing his arms in the air when he thought he beat Duke Lascelles, and he was told he wasn't, he was second, he said he'd never come back and ride the Paris-Roubaix again. Well, he's done it, because after that he came back the next year and he finished into 3rd spot. He came back the following year and he won it in 1995, and so now having got that victory here, that makes his second victory as such for Ballerini. But out on the road, his 2 teammates, Andrea Taffi and Wilfred Peters are going to ride into second and third place. They did a wonderful team job today when the bunch were trying to chase him down, and what's left of the bunch, so we're down to about 8 men chasing him. Of the 25 teams sending some 8 riders this race. We had nearly 200 riders sign on to start this race, and the dribs and drabs are going to be coming in here, because further down the course there are still riders fighting their way through the mud, fighting their way through the cobbles. They all want to finish this race. You can see the state of the bicycles and the state of the roads today have been unbelievable, but Mapei have triumphed yet again. They're in for 1, 2 and 3, as they did in 1996 when Johan Mazeo was first, Bortolami was second, and Andrea Taffi, who's here, was in third place. Well, I'd like to see Andrea Taffi, number 17 here at the back, Sean, get a second place now to move up on the third, which he had to take when he came in on that occasion with Mazeo and Bortolami. But we'll have to see. I'm sure that Peters probably is a stronger sprinter. Would you like to predict the result?
I don't know. I prefer Peters to come second. It'd be interesting to see whether they really do sprint for it or what happens.
They're not going to hold hands again, are they?
Maybe. You just don't know in this game. Obviously, they're going to be very happy, you know, knowing that Ballerine's won and they've taken the first 3 places. 1
kilometre to go for the second and third place, and I've got so many books and records here. I don't know if I can go back and find you when they've had 3 men from the same team win the race twice, because this is almost a tremendous exception, isn't it? Because I mean, when Mapei were first, second and third before, that was quite unusual. Now we've got them doing first, second and third again. I wouldn't have thought it had happened before ever, you know, apart from when they did it last time. So you're watching history then on Eurosport. As they come through here to the applause, they recognise how well these riders did their job. They didn't chase down Ballerini when he went away. They sat in that group behind, and then when the moment was right, when they knew that Ballerini had sufficient to lead to stay away, they launched their attacks and left behind them the riders you'll be seeing coming in shortly. They know that Ballerini's got it. Now they're going to have their own little private race round here for second and third place. And there they go. Thank goodness the sun has come out then to warm the hearts of the aching competitors' legs, and they're going to come round just behind that group that they left way down the road. And we've got Van Bon, Sorensen, Moncassin coming up now. Looks like Taffy sat on him and he's going to take the second place. And off he goes. And on the line, yes! That was a great one. Andrea Taffi taking second place. Peters taking third. The average speed, 38.27 kilometres per hour for the 266.5 kilometres. And this is the sprint for 4th spot, and Van Bon and Sorensen have been working out the front. Moncassin is at the front. Moncassin's on the front now, starting to go. They'll have some job to catch this fellow. One day, if he gets in this bunch to win the sprint, he will be happy to take the victory, but he hasn't got it this time. In fact, Van Bon went ahead of Moncassin, with Sorensen, who's also covered in mud, just behind him, and Baxter, who rode a wonderful race, is in just behind there. But it looks to me as Sorensen came through, he's also had the crash. You can see the mud all over these riders' shoulders where they've come off on their way in towards the finish in Roubaix. There it is in the background, this great town that's had this race finishing here since way back in 1896, and now we're seeing the second place going to Taffi, third place going to Peters, and again 1, 2 and 3, a clean sweep for Mapei, whilst Van Bon for Rabobank comes out of that chasing group to take the 4th spot, ahead Moncassin 5th, 6th Sorensen, and in the background a fine 7th of Baxted, who undoubtedly has done a great ride today. Rode hard for his team as we're looking back at the Mapei team, but Baxted, to me, a real revelation, as was Dirksen, as was Tom Steels. You know, they all did great rides, you know, to get to the finish here, and Baxted certainly did a great ride, and we've got Dirksen and Gouvener in this next group, and they've stayed the distance and they've done a great job. Well, we're looking at slow motion replay there, and whilst we're looking at that, I can tell you on the track another group of 2, 4, 5 riders have come in, and although that camera's not picking them up, they do contain Bortolami in that group as well. Bortolami, who was the second man in that clean sweep of Mappe in 1996, coming round. You just got him on the screen now. He was with the Mappe team when they had 1, 2 and 3 before, and he just missed out there. In fact, Mappe managed to get another place on that little sprint. Bart Laysons it was that took that sprint as well. So it's been a great day for Mappe, and brilliant performance by Ballerini though to take the victory. Mappe 1, 2 and 3 in Roubaix. We're going to get ready for the victory presentation on the rostrum, and we're also looking forward to the rest of the cycle racing on Eurosport this week. We'll be on air live on Wednesday and on Sunday. Flèche Wallonne followed by Les Bastogne-Liège, and well, we've seen some great racing here. The people who've been riding the Paris Roubaix are not likely to be in contention for the Flèche Wallonne. We're going to have some different riders up there. Will people like Van den Broek for Mappe produce a good ride in the Flèche Wallonne or Liège Bastogne? It's highly probable, and that is something I'm looking forward to as well. I've been very happy to have Sean Yates with me. Say goodbye, Sean.
Thank you very much, Dave, for having me.
Right, glad to have you with us today on the Paris Roubaix. I'm David Duffield. It's been again a fascinating afternoon, and the people here are cheering this man Dirksen man has been probably the man of the match, and we're going over from this event to the Superbike World Championships, and we're going to take a deep breath after sitting here all this afternoon in rather cold conditions, but seeing what has been an absolutely superb Sunday afternoon cycle racing. And here he comes then, Dirksen. He went in that early breakaway group.
David.
Oh, Shamil, I'm honest,
Yeah.
I was just looking at the colours because they were cheering. It's Shamil who's been a past winner, hasn't he? There we go, we're going to get the prize presentation on the roster. This big rock as well will follow the bouquet of flowers. So Ballerini gets the applause, gets the flowers, gets his £15,000 as well. In fact, Mappe did rather well there because he does take first, second and third. There was £15,000 for the first place rider, and I think it's 10 for second and 5 for third. So they've done rather well today. And there goes a lump of pavé. That's the second one for his mantelpiece.
Yeah.
He can have one on either side now. So
to reinforce it, I think.
Yeah, neatly balanced. Yes. So that's another most unusual prize to take back, but I'm sure the money will be jolly useful. But it's not just that, it's the glory of winning this great race. This the 96th edition of the Paris Roubaix. I hope you enjoyed it. I have. Thanks for your company. See you on Wednesday. Until then, bye-bye.